and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. It's your boy David Jack, and we're joined by the one and only Paul Osper to get through a lot of yesterday's and today's news. I'll be honest, I did want to go live yesterday, but I just so deflated over everything. You know, I just need to take time out, just sort of gather my thoughts on everything and come back today. I just really deflated with what's going on at this club. But look, like I warned the last night, we were live just before we ended. You know, that Feyenoord were in a situation where they could charge exactly what they want for Arne Slot with him having a couple of years left on his contract, and that was not over by the long stretch of the imagination. And then I wake up the next morning and my fears became reality. It's sad. It's a sad. But you know what? It's even sadder that none of us were shocked. That's the worst part about it. But look, Jacko, over to you, my man.
You say none of us were shocked, Dave. I think I was a little shocked. I think I was a little taken aback. I probably have taken well too many punches in the gut. I've probably taken well too many, just let's be honest, just stone cold, punches to the face this season from the likes of Spurs, from the likes of Levy, from the likes of just everybody, it feels like this season. But that one definitely, I feel like, hurt a little bit because you feel like you're reaching towards the tail end of the season. We've already been, kind of had the veil pulled over our eyes when it comes to Nagelsmann. We've been tricked before when it comes to other people. Just feels like, this was maybe the one. And, Dave, you were already saying he was hey, Shawnee, he was already the Martin Yule. Or the new Martin Yule. He even had the middle name Martin. So, Dave, I was happy clapping. I was so desperate to happy clap. And another stone cold punch in the gut.
It's absolutely madness. It's absolutely madness. You think we couldn't beat, 72 days before we appointed Nuno? We're already on 61 days as it stands today, which is absolutely madness. But we are, of course, joined by Shawnee from Spurs Talk Show as well. Shawnee, how are you keeping, my man?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Yeah, I don't have long, guys. I just thought I'd jump on with your blessing for like half an hour, then I've got to get to the hospital. So, but yeah, just wanted to hear your thoughts in real time. Morning, Paul. Just seen you over on Savas. You go doing round the houses today.
Educating people on Ange. It's my turn for heartbreak coming up because my guy's top of the list now, and Levy will fuck it up.
Sending out the invoices yet, Paul, for your Ange Postecoglou knowledge?
What was that, sorry?
Are you sending out the invoices yet for your Ange Postecoglou knowledge?
Oh, yeah. I'm charging. We've got to get some eraser for that big red cross.
Yeah.
You're going to eat that red cross.
Revenge.
Paul, you do realize, mate, that when you wear your heart on your sleeve and you put your name out there, attach it to something like Postecoglou, if he fails, if he comes in, and then B, the inevitable when he fails, like every other manager does, you know that you will be in the mud for at least 6 months until someone else's turn takes over. Everyone's going to say, that bloody Paul, he got me pumped up about Postecoglou.
All I can do is open the door for him, welcome him inside. The job is up to him, though. So,
Fair enough.
When we do get to Postecoglou, Paul, I do have one or two questions I sort of need answers for to be 100% convinced. And we will get on that. Just quickly, something funny that came out yesterday I thought was absolutely hilarious. I needed to see it because with what was going on at Tottenham, it cheered me up. Chip you out. Enough is enough. The Spurs burn. It cheered me right up last night. Then you have Jazzy Fusion says he finds himself, waiting to see when Shark Week is back on Discovery Channel. He's that bored with Tottenham at the minute. I love it. Let's welcome a few people into the stream and then we will crack into the news because there's a lot of it. Big up the disabled team, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Never a dull moment, brother. Mark, I think many people are starting to believe that way, my man, about him being a good businessman. Good businessman doesn't exactly let you get into this situation. Big up Arne Slot Magic. I don't want to see that name anymore. I'm done with him. He's pissed me off. He turned down a move from a glorified League of Ireland to the Premier League. It's an absolute joke. I'm fed up. Sign of the times where we're at. We have Jazzy Fusion says, if folks get a chance, could someone clear this up for me? How can the board offer Rodgers the job if Levy doesn't want him? Look, there's a lot of stuff out there at the minute, and I think it's at a point where no one really knows what to believe. No one really knows what to believe at this point. And look, myself, Jack, Sean, Paul, we're all in the same boat as you guys out there. We just go off what's on there out of the media. Like, we don't have special ITKs or inside infos or anything like that. So we're all in the same boat as you, and we all get just as angry as you guys do when it comes to this news. Big up Elliot Swell. Big up Stefan Deluxe. Great to see you. We have more Moondog. I'm sick of my club. It's a disgrace. Yeah, I think many people are reaching this point now, sadly, to be honest with you, Moondog. You know, I was only saying to someone yesterday, I think it was actually on the phone to Sean, there's just no enjoyment left in anything at this football club anymore. Nothing to really enjoy, you know. It's a sad state of affairs, Moondog. And how we're going to get out of it, I wish I had the answers, to be honest with you, brother. But big what we have Garrett.
He also, Dave, just quickly, member for 18 months as a Flat Cap member, Moondog, and he says, good afternoon. We're going to be ending up with Mason, I bet. Shawnee, if you were going to do a quick bet corner, what would you? What are the people saying? You know, in the bet corner world of the manager, what's Sean Bet 88 or whatever it's called? If there was a road Sean betting.
Bet Sean,
Sean,
Bet Sean 82.
Who is it next? I had it up earlier. Next Tottenham manager odds. Look, basically, yeah, it looks like the kind of the aggregators are all pulling it in towards Postecoglou. You can get 5 to the lowest price you can get on him is 2. The best price you can get to him right now is 10 to 3. So you put a pound
Mason
on, you
get
£3.30 back. Mason Mount is right there.
Or not Mason Mount.
Ryan Mason is down at. You can get 25 to 1 on him at Betfair. So not bad. Yeah, it could happen. But I think that if I was saying this yesterday on We Are Tottenham TV, that if Ryan Mason does get selected, I think that there will be riots. The Tottenham riots of the 80s will come back in a different format. And I feel like I was saying this just quick, if you don't mind me just leaning into it for a second. I feel like part of the problem with Tottenham is, and it's not necessarily the fault of the club, but when Tottenham fans read about a rumour, and I'll say the same thing happened with left-sided centre-backs all last year, and it's happening now with managers. We'll get linked with a player whose calibre is up here. And it won't be because the club necessarily are talking about it. It might just be a clickbait headline. It happened with Bastoni, then it happened with Guardiola, right? And then with the manager search, it happens with Nagelsmann, right? For example. And then as soon as Tottenham fans read that, we run with it as Tottenham creators, content creators. We run with it. All of the guys in the comments get excited about it, and then that is the baseline. And anything less than that is somehow unacceptable. Like how many defenders did Tottenham fans, or not just defenders, how many players last summer did Tottenham fans, myself included, like roll our eyes to and say, "Oh, I don't want Bola Ketchup. I don't want Hincapi. I don't want Pau Torres because I've got my eyes set on Bastoni." Oh, sorry, Jack, you're on mute. Can't hear you, Jack. You're on mute, mate.
You're on mute.
All right. Sorry.
You're back now. You're back now. Yeah.
Early in the morning. I'm not as quick on it. I was going to say, Sean, Kavicha, Kim Min-jae are also examples, right? Back in the day when we were looking at Kavicha from Russia, I think we were saying, I don't want him at the time. Even Nuno wouldn't want him, I think was like the joke. Or like
exactly.
Like
right.
Yeah.
So we set our expectations according to whatever the clickbait media, the biggest name, and then no one else will suffice. And we end up with Clement Longley. Right, and it's like you're window shopping at the Ferrari dealership, and you drive home in a second-hand Ford Fiesta, and it disappoints Tottenham fans. But in reality, are we setting our standards too high? Like, was Nagelsmann ever a reality? You know, is Ryan Mason going to be like the creator of chaos, like the carnage, the riots that are going to happen, or Brendan Rodgers? More realistically, Brendan Rodgers, or no disrespect, Paul, but Ange Postecoglou doesn't have the caliber of brand name as a Nagelsmann does. And Tottenham fans might just like be unhappy that we end up landing on one of those sorts of names, when in reality, the only reason we're unhappy is because we've set our sights unrealistically on managers that never really had any intentions of being here in the first place.
Well, I think the clubs. I agree with you, Sean. But I think the club set that expectation as well. You know, Mourinho, Conte. Yeah, it's not like we've hired crap. It's, to me, that it feels like it was a Ponzi scheme, just a con job, because they got these managers in. They had no intention of doing anything with them, and it all went tits up. And I think what would cause a riot, not just Mason, but I reckon we're going to hire someone who's not in a job. If we're not going to pay for Slot to get out of Feyenoord, we're not going to pay for anyone else. We're going to get someone who's out of a job. And then, well, why didn't we hire them back in March? Why have we been fucking around?
Exactly.
You know,
great point. Great point.
This is what I said back then when Stanini was put in charge. I came out and I said, this is not what people wanted. I got absolutely ridiculed for it, but realistically, they knew over that international period that they were going to sack Antonio Conte. They could have got ahead of this back then. I warned that, the longer we wait around, the less exciting name we're going to bring in here, because they're going to start being picked off. Other clubs are going to start speaking to them. I fear we're at that situation. But another thing, Sean, I just want to say, and I'm not having a pop at you about the content creators like grabbing the news and sort of doing stuff on it. It's like, look, because we got a couple of comments underneath the podcast yesterday where people were like, "You guys think you're in the know," and blaming us for Slot not happening. I just want to stress out there that, look, we're fan channels. I just want to say we're fan channels of the football club, set up by fans for fans to air their opinion. All we go off is what happens at Tottenham Hotspur, the matches, etc., plus what's put out there in the media. That's what these fan channels are about. And there's no point sitting here blaming fan channels for it. At the end of the day, we're providing a platform for fans that the club have not done. They don't give fans a platform to air their opinions and stuff of what's going on at Tottenham. Fan channels do. So I do stress to people out there, it's not blame the fan channels. It's not them. All they do is just bring up the news and they give their opinion on it.
Yeah.
And provide platforms for people to get it.
If all the newspapers, not newspapers, whatever they are called online, if everyone's reporting Slot is imminent, he's coming to Tottenham, what are you supposed to do, Dave? You're just supposed to sort of not talk about it. No.
Yeah.
Not until he's there.
I wasn't like throwing people like myself under the bus.
No,
I'm part
no.
of it. Just saying though that like part of the not the issue, not the problem, but part of the consequences of media reporting players being linked to us, people like us, then talking about it. The consequences of that, not the problem or not the cause of it, but the consequences of it are that the expectations then get set around who we want to have. And then when someone else comes in that's lower than that level, Tottenham fans turn their nose up to it. And not just Tottenham fans, but any it's the same with any club. Like you turn your nose up to it, you think, well, we're better than that because we were linked previously, even though the link was probably bullshit in the first place. That's the point I was making.
If the manager wears a black cap, you can blame us because we should probably have done a better job about trying to convince him then because, we can speak the flat cap culture to him. But, the fact that, Arne Slot, more of a member of, I think Lazy 8 said, or Nick said, the slaphead army, not exactly, we're friendly with them, but, it's exactly Paul would have been more convincing, to try to get him over. We can blame Paul.
I love it. But guys, we got a couple of super chats there. We're going to bring them up and address them. Then we're all going to give our thoughts on what happened with Arne Slot and make our way through that news. Rob Wallace says David Harris rants are the best on YouTube. The passion oozing from his last gasp of air before his next sentence is gold. Like I was saying, I'll probably turn blue one of these days and pass out before I get it out. I do have a problem with breathing when I'm ranting, as you can see, Rob Wallace. Good to see you, Vice Spurs as well. Jerome, great to see you, Sir K. Martin Richards, Andrew Seymour, great to see you. So many people in
Very
here.
nice comment from K, by the way.
So far behind. So Jerome says, I am like Paul. I would be excited about Postecoglou. We won a trophy everywhere he went. He is a brilliant tactician. Jerome, just give me 1 minute on that. We're just going to sort of get the Slot news out the way, and then we'll come back in on the Ange Postecoglou one. I promise to bring it up as soon as we get into it. We'll get into it after Slot. But let's start with Slot, Jacko.
Yeah, let's start with Slot. The Slot deal is off, as probably everybody knew yesterday. Dave and I were kind of still grieving from the news, so sorry that we've come at it, still a bit late here, everybody. But basically broken by Fabrizio Romano here, and he kind of actually said here that Arne Slot stays at Feyenoord and will not sign as the Tottenham manager. He said, I've read the rumors, but it is my wish to stay at Feyenoord and to continue what we built over the past 2 seasons. My wish is to continue working on what we created last year. He also said Arne Slot was fully open to joining Tottenham, but the £15 million fee to get him out of Feyenoord stunned Spurs bosses. Even after Slot's announcement that he would be staying at Feyenoord, it is understood he was fully open to joining Spurs this summer, and there remains some disappointment that he isn't joining the Premier League outfit. Dave, I think the first thing that came to mind when it comes to this for me is just maybe another sort of second choice FC kind of moment for Spurs. It feels like even Arne Slot, of all people, sort of sees, Spurs as either a second choice. Maybe he was using us for a deal all along. Doesn't really matter. I think that still sort of falls in line in the second choice, because he kind of then played us along this whole time in order to kind of get himself maybe a better deal and probably get himself maybe a bit more even status kind of in the European game. I'm not sure if anybody was really doing as much research in Arne Slot until he was really linked into to this Tottenham job. And now all of a sudden he's gotten like a big new contract. And what do you think, Dave? I mean, Arne Slot, another example of second choice FC, feels like.
First of all, I want to say it's embarrassing that we can't get a manager out of the Eredivisie. It's a glorified League of Ireland, a bit more technical version of League of Ireland. To not pull a manager out of there to the size of Tottenham Hotspur, first of all, is absolutely embarrassing for this football club. Look, Jack, the way I look at this situation, if you want me to be brutally honest, I first initially thought that maybe we were being used for him to negotiate a new contract. However, when I sat there and thought about it a bit more deeper, I think we were in negotiations to get Slot out of there. However, I don't think we wanted to pay the money that they were asking for. And that then leaves everyone in an awkward situation. It means Feyenoord and Arne Slot have to save face so they can sort of put out in the media what they wanted. I was always going to stay and sign a new contract. We basically put Feyenoord in a precarious position, to be honest with you. I wouldn't say, I don't think we'll see any players leave Feyenoord to Tottenham anytime soon. Yeah. But look, Jack, my thing on it is, right, report around 15 million a year, or 15 million just to get him out of there. Then you're putting probably, 4, 5, 6 million a year on wages on top of that, maybe a little bit more. That's more than what we had for the Antonio Conte here. That's probably more than what we end up, Conte was on 14 million? So that's more than what Antonio Conte cost. Jose Mourinho, I'm not 100% sure, but I could bet your bottom dollar it's more than the time Jose Mourinho spent at Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, like, I can understand why the club are reluctant to pay that fee. But Jack, at the same time, I'm one of these guys, like, if he is the guy you have identified as your number one target to take this club forward, you pay exactly what you want. You pay exactly what it takes to get this guy here if he's the guy you truly believe in. And that shows to me that they bought that defeat because they weren't 100% confident. And I believe we're that far down the list. I don't think they have 100% confidence in anyone they're going to play.
Yeah. Considering, though, we've basically wasted a country's GDP on fullbacks and right backs, over the course of like 10 years, it feels like 15 million pounds for a manager in this crucial stage and where we are would seem possible. I'm not sure if you mentioned this before, Sean. I feel like you would have, but like a manager does get given a lot of, or he's given a lot of power, right? He's given a lot of sway, you would think. And sometimes he is actually worth, maybe in some stage, the value of a player. Like he could be worth, a 15 million pound transfer. He could be worth a 20 million pound transfer if you think he's going to fix, what is needed to be done. And I mean, let's be honest, the job that's here is a very dirty job. It's a job you have to get your hands dirty for, and it's going to be very hard work indeed. But you feel like, well, if it's this difficult of a task, I mean, just pay it up. And we spoke about it before. Levy, a guy who normally has like a number he won't go past or a number that he won't pay or whatever it is, kind of that kind of sort of number crunching. We've kind of said, like, when you've driven yourself to this sort of state, like, you can't think about it in that sort of terms. Like, yes, you can still maybe haggle, but you have to realize that you have so many things you need to get done this summer, so many obstacles that will come in your path that eventually you're just going to have to tolerate it and just pay whatever the person is asking, pay whatever the club is going to get, because you have so many other things that you still need to do this summer in terms of directors of football, in terms of being able to secure Harry Kane's future, Sonny's future, etc. It just feels like the more and more we delay, the more and more kind of just things really just don't get done. Again, kind of the further we probably fall behind, and probably the further that we don't actually get any of what we originally expected this summer to be done. And I'm just worried that, again, Levy is going to fall into the habit, Sean, of not really seeing that, maybe he just has to pay what he needs to pay in order to kind of get the ball rolling here.
Yeah, I literally said exactly the same thing on a video that is coming out today. That if it's true that the 15 million pound is because there's two schools of thought. One is he was leveraged, we were used as leverage. The other one is that he bought to the price. I believe that the truth is somewhere in between. Like, I believe that second thing by Sammy Mockbell, where he's disappointed that he could have got it done maybe after the negotiations, after Tottenham resisted on the fee, then he went and had conversations with Feyenoord. Maybe the package that Feyenoord put together was somewhat commensurate. And then all in, he probably went home, had a conversation with his family, and then walked away with the idea that the risk reward is not really there when Feyenoord are paying, offering something similar in a pay packet, whatever. But if it's true that the £15 million was the reason why they didn't do it, and I made this argument, I was like, it's so important. First and foremost, it's surprising because Daniel Levy usually doesn't scrimp on managerial fees. He'll pay the wages, he'll pay for the big guys, and also do long-term contracts generally. He's got a history of doing long-term contracts. So if it's 15 million quid, you can amortize that over the course of a 4 or 5 year contract. Now, I take Dave's point yesterday that maybe 5 year contracts are a thing of the past, but you might be able to see a 4 year contract. So that works out to be 3.5 million quid a year if you spread the 15 million quid over the course of the contract. He's not going to want the same salary as Conte. So if he's the same guy, if he's the guy that could have got everyone behind the new system and we all get excited again, then the risk reward of not doing it seems a weird decision to make. But you should be thinking about it. I said to in my video, Daniel Levy, I implore you to recognize what happened with Conte. You spoke to Conte in the summer 2 years ago. You balked at the price then. You walked away. You hired Nuno. You realized that was a massive mistake. You had to end up paying Nuno, whatever it was, 25 million quid in compensation. And then you went and got Conte anyway. So learn from your mistake there. It should be fresh enough in your memory to know that this decision is not over. Arne Slot has not signed a new contract with Feyenoord. If it's true that Slot is disappointed, go back. And if it's difficult for you to get your head around the cost of the managerial compensation, because I think it would be the third highest compensation figure ever paid behind Nagelsmann's move to Munich and Potter's move to Chelsea, both of which didn't work out, both of which managers are unemployed and still on the shortlist. But think of it like a player, because it's just as important as a player.
That's what I was going to ask you.
You could have 11 superstars, and if you don't have a manager to structure a team and a game plan, then you won't find success. How much is 15 million quid?
Or when you're in this bad of a situation, right? Isn't it probably worth the price of a player? Like if you're desperate for a right back and in this case, we're desperate for a manager. We're desperate for a guy to, put us in the right direction.
15 million pounds.
What it is.
50 million pound, Jack, is Ollie Skip's value, right? It doesn't even get you an Emerson Royale. It doesn't get you a Brian Hill. It gets you one of Ndombele's limbs. It gets you a quarter of an Ndombele. When you think of it in that term, like it gets you one of Richarlison's legs or arms, right? Whatever, right? When you kind of like don't think of it as the third biggest managerial expense in the history of European football. Think of it as a quarter of Richarlison. And then maybe you can get your head around it.
It's not even an Emerson Royale or a Brian Hill. And, as much as we love those two players, that just speaks to it. And it speaks to, the money in context that we're willing to spend 30 million on a winger that we don't really end up using very much. But apparently 15 million on a guy who could potentially save our, future and potentially get us pushing in the right direction again is too much, to bring in. And especially though it screams, if we think he's the right guy and if we have done our due diligence, not saying we have, absolutely not saying we have, but if we have done our due diligence on the guy, then pay whatever it takes because he's the guy that you've identified as the right person to be able to lead you forward. So why again?
And it's not too late, Jack. It's not too late. Swallow your pride. If there's any truth to the fact that Slot, whilst he's committed to Feyenoord now, he's still disappointed that he couldn't get it done, then phone up the guy at Feyenoord and say, all right, here's your 20 million. Like the five that we thought we were paying, here's the other 15. Can we go now, please? Get it done. Because the collateral damage of screwing this up, there's other indirect consequences. If there was a glimmer of hope that Harry Kane would sign a new contract, it requires there to be some level of cogent plan. And Arne Slot maybe would have been enough, right? To make Harry Kane to go, all right, I'll think about it. Like at the moment, Harry Kane is probably like, hey, no chance. I ain't staying here. They're rudderless. Like, pick up the phone, Daniel Levy, and if not Arne Slot, they go and do it for Nagelsmann. Like, we don't need again. Sorry, last thing I'll say, Paul. As much as I know you want Postecoglou, like I don't want Postecoglou. I don't want Brendan Rodgers. I don't really want any of that kind. I want one of the two that are still out there that haven't signed new contracts yet. So pick up the phone, Daniel, and make it happen.
But that amount of money, that isn't just for Slot, is it? That would be for some of his coaching staff as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Pusic, I think his name is that. Yeah, the guy, the assistant manager. Yeah.
The thing is, though, it's the way football's going in general. Like, managers are going to start going for transfer fees now. You look at Amorim to get him out of Sporting. They paid, 20 million. He signed a new contract. They upped it to 30 million. You know, when teams know that they've got a good manager like that and a manager that will be in demand in the future, they're slapping transfer fees on them. So, you know, we shouldn't be balking our nose up at transfer fees for a manager right now. And realistically, the last 3 managers we've had at this football club have all been out of a job. Jose Mourinho was out of a job when we hired him. Nuno was out of a job when we hired him, and same as Conte. Look how that worked out. It hasn't exactly worked out. Why can't we go to a club and pull a manager out of a club that's currently doing it? That's what we need to be doing. And that's the way the future of football is going, is transfer fees for managers. And we just got to get with it. If you think that guy is your number one choice, I don't care about the fee. Go and fucking get him. Because if you're balking and that at a fee like that and you don't agree with it, then what was the point of entering discussions in the first place if you're not 100% set on that guy, you know, to come in and take this forward? It's an absolute farce.
Considering how important this managerial job is, Dave, you just think it would be almost worth practically any price. Really, it would be worth whatever it takes to bring him in, considering how much he needs to do. Because we even brought it up on that podcast, Dave. Like, it's not like Arne Slot just comes in here and plays pretty football or instills, you know, nice, you know, aesthetically pleasing tactics, and that wins, you know, everybody over. He's got to unite the fan base. He's got to be able to unite the squad. That's a very fractured squad right now. He's got to be able to instill some type of tactics that can actually be competitive enough in the Premier League, because as much as we do like, you know, pleasing football, like, he's probably got to finish in the top half of the table because it is still a results-based business. And he's also as well got to try to be able in some way negotiate with the owners and be able to figure out some type of method to be able to be successful despite maybe the obstacles that they might present for him. And we said it's not an easy job that he's walking into either. So again, I mean, whatever it takes then, you know, like for a guy that's willing to take all that on.
And just before we let Paul in as well, like, you know, if they done their homework, they got people employed to sit there and monitor social media, see what the feeling is. They would have known that many fans were getting excited about him. Even fans that want the owners out were saying, like, you know, look, Slot, you know, I could see a plan there. I can see something there. So to walk away from that when fans are at a time where fans are, like, even me, you know, and I'll get on to it a little while, you know, are starting to become more and more disconnected from this football club as the day goes on. So act quickly, get it done and get the guy in that fans, you know, we're starting to get a bit excited about to see a project with. For me, you don't treat a manager like that and you don't treat a club like that if he's not your first choice. You put Feyenoord and Arne Slot in a situation where both of them had to come back together and save face. You know, you don't do that to people. You just don't do that to people. If he's not your number one choice, there's no point. No point in going in there if he's not your number one choice. You go in there if he's your number one choice, knowing you go in at all costs. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But look, I'll be conscious. I'll let you in there, Paul. And then we'll get on to Ange Postecoglou, your favourite subject.
The dessert.
Hang on, I've got to go and come back. Sorry, man.
Okay, no worries.
He's getting prepared for his man. He's getting prepared for his favorite person. He's getting in character for.
We take some of these super chats. We go through some of these super chats.
Jerome here saying, I am like Paul, or we should save that maybe for him in just a second. We'll get to in just a second here. Jerome Moondog says, hope it goes well at the hospital for you, Shawnee. And then he also says, I had my bet on Ange at £400 incoming if he joins. Nice. He's not putting on Mason. He didn't take your 25-1 odds, but he's also just keeping you in mind as well, Shawnee. Very kind Moondog. What price did he get?
Yeah,
thanks, best of luck. I'm going to go. You know what? I might as well drop out now because it's a good intermission in the conversation. So, love you guys. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Shawnee.
Take care.
Best of luck. Everyone in the comments, get in the comments. Wish Shawnee the best of luck. What a dude. Big up, Moondog. Nice little incoming. If Ange comes in, my man, big yourself up, brother.
Look, I was disappointed about Slot too, because like I don't just look at the manager as far as tactics and all that sort of stuff. You've got to look at the man and how they carry themselves. So when Slot was being bandied around, you know, I went and had a look at some of his press conferences and I thought he was quite an impressive guy. I thought, okay, there's something in this man, you know. If that's who we're going to get, I'd be content with that. I'd be happy with that. But, you know, didn't happen.
What's your thoughts on Spurs balking at the fee to get him and the staff he wanted out?
Well, like you say, look, if that's the guy, what the hell is $15 million?
It's like a fiver too much, right, Paul? In football terms.
Sorry?
It's like 5 million. Well, no, not like the reports were that they were haggling over like 5 million. There was like a 5 million in the difference. Well, 5 million is like a fiver.
This is Levy's MO, isn't it? He always, whether it's a player, anything, a hot dog, it's always 5 million. That's his only criteria for anything. He would buy $100 million player if he could get him for 95. He would buy a $10 million player if he could get him for 5. It's always 5 million discount. So to play silly buggers with that, I mean, it doesn't really, if you're in Arne Slot's position and you see you're being haggled over, you'd be thinking, well, shit, well, when I want to buy some players, is he going to be a dick like this? Is this what I'm going to have to bloody deal with? I'm out.
Yeah. Shocking.
There's no intent there, is there?
No. It was half-hearted, and this is what I'm saying. If he's not your number one choice, you're not fully convinced. Like, you've got to be fully convinced going in there. It's like it reeks of incompetency. Absolutely reeks of it, and I'm fed up of it. But look, that's enough on Slot. Let's answer Jerome's super chat here. He's tuning in. He wants to know what your thoughts on Ange Postecoglou is, Jerome. He says, I am like Paul. I would be excited about Postecoglou. He has won a trophy everywhere he went. He is a brilliant tactician.
Now you come asking me. Now, Paul, please tell us about Ange.
Getting your royalties now.
Oh no, I remember that, Jack. Look, I mean, I've said a bit on various things. I mean, maybe ask me some. What do you want to know? I've said so much about him that I lose track. So,
well, just a quick, maybe I'll start with the first question here, Paul. But by the way, actually, when we were making up those images with the red X's, I actually asked, that the red X over Ange just be made a little bit darker, just a little bit fiercer, just to make people more angry. But, with Ange Postecoglou, do you feel like the Champions League, right? That's when you can really judge probably him maybe a bit better. Do you feel what sort of is the reputation that it didn't go well for Celtic and that they should have done a lot better, right? They had maybe some easier teams than others. Why do you think maybe it didn't exactly go well for him? What is it maybe about Postecoglou that, maybe has people doubtful? Because like I said, maybe that Shakhtar Donetsk game is one that I've pointed out maybe to you in the past where it's like, he lost to not even a good Shakhtar team, like basically Shakhtar's youth team, but he still actually had, a lot of shots on goal. It looked like in most games, but his team couldn't hit the back of the net. But, it isn't always that. I mean, we've had that as a problem, even with Kane and Sonny, it can't be a thing. So I don't know, what do you make of the fact that, the Champions League, it didn't work out for him, you could say?
It didn't, but I think it's a bit unfair. I mean, when you just look at the scores, they didn't have a really good run, but I watched their games and I had much more fun watching Celtic playing Real Madrid than Tottenham, Marseille. So even though where Celtic, I think, came short against clubs like Real Madrid it was around about the 60, 70 minute mark where they kind of ran out of steam. They're just not used to playing clubs at that level. And that was last year. I think if Ange is around, if Ange doesn't come to Tottenham, I think he might know it because he knows Celtic's history and the '67 team. I think he might seriously have an eye on a tilt at some Champions League, progressing a lot further and maybe winning the damn thing because he really is up for it. And the team was up for it. And they, a few of those games, it was such fine margins that with a couple more seasons experience, you can correct those things. And I think Celtic, even though Tottenham finished top of our group, I mean, how the fuck do we do that, really? I mean, I don't know if you two are happy watching us in Champions League, but to me, it was the same old crap. 45 minutes of good stuff, 45 minutes of shit. I think that Celtic actually performed better than Tottenham, even though the results and positions wouldn't really bear that out.
They were more exciting to watch.
Sorry?
They were more exciting to watch. They gave it a better go than what we did. You know, in terms of trying to play the right way in the Champions League. Jack, have you anything else you want to come in off the back?
I just had a quick second question actually to Paul, and I'm actually curious to anybody who also is like a Postecoglou sort of like enthusiast, you know, because he's also just not even, he's at a crossroads kind of like in his career, right? I think because Dave, you brought up earlier, I'm not sure if he's been given a new contract or anything like that. He's like considering a big new contract at Celtic, which would then, you know, follow up with what Paul was saying about, you know, trying to make a big, you know, push at, you know, European competition of some kind and try to bring that home to them. Or with where he is right now in his career, does he see an opportunity to make a, you know, progression over to the Premier League, a more challenging league, and a different sort of kind of, you know, just a different look? You know, right now at Celtic, everything is going really well for him. He's built a beautiful project there. Does he want to continue with that and maybe stay a bit out of the limelight, right, to a degree? You don't have as much attention on you. Or do you want to pick up what is a dumpster fire at Spurs and get his hands dirty and, you know, kind of feel what I would say is kind of feel alive again, probably as a manager, where you're dealing, you know, with daily, you know, kind of obstacles and whatnot, and you're under real high pressure. I mean, it's kind of two very different choices. And so that's probably what he's up against. Two very different choices.
It's a tough one to answer because, like, I mean, he has got things set up well there, and the Celtic fans absolutely love him up there. They were very sceptical at the beginning. He had to win them over, and he won them over pretty quickly. But something Ange talks a lot about when he's talking about football is comfort. He doesn't want his team or players to be comfortable, because when you're comfortable, you become complacent. And throughout his managerial career, he's put himself out of the comfort zone numerous times. And I think that, you know, it might be wishful thinking, but he might look at the shit show that is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club and think, you know what, that's a challenge. And I think he's interested in challenge. He wants to be the best manager he can be. Now, if he thinks he can do that at Celtic, maybe he can stay. But I think he wants to push himself. I really do. So, you know, he might come down this.
Then the fact that he doesn't have, like, you know, a ton of time on that contract means he has to make a tough decision then between.
Well, I think they've had him like rolling on a 12-month contract. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's how. Sorry?
Postecoglou's contract. I believe Postecoglou's contract is up May the 31st of this year. So, you know, I think there is a possibility.
Be after the SFA final, surely. You know, I mean, I don't think he's going to leave them before they've got the treble in. But yeah, I think that's it. So, yeah, it would be either, you know, and look, if he does come to Tottenham, then not that I'm saying Levy in or anything like that, but if all of this Arne Slot, Nagelsmann was all bullshit, and Tottenham's plan was to get someone like Postecoglou or maybe another manager who was committed to their club to the end of the season, which I think is a positive. I think that's a good sign in a manager to stick things through and not cut and run like Brendan Rodgers did with Celtic, you know, halfway through a season. Then I can give him a bit of slack. I think I still want him gone, but
let me ask you a question, Paul. So on Ange Postecoglou, look, you know, like I've explained before, every Irish kid is sort of given Celtic as a second team soon as you're born and stuff like that. Ange Postecoglou has done a fantastic job at Celtic. Where Celtic were before he came in, were sliding further and further behind Rangers, you know, and he completely changed that around within the season. He's done a fantastic job. And he basically done it by bringing in a couple of players from the Japanese league, which really transformed Celtic. But Paul, my biggest fear on Ange Postecoglou, and I'm not doubting his management. He is a man manager. That's how he gets the best out of his players, through his man management. But with someone like Slot, with someone like a Nagelsmann, you see a project, someone that wants to work with younger players, this, that, and the other. At Celtic, Ange Postecoglou hasn't exactly done that. With the signings he's made, they haven't exactly been sort of younger players. He hasn't really brought too much true either in terms of Celtic. You know, he's used the Joe Hart, Carter Vickers, players that weren't good enough for Tottenham in the first place. If he comes in, do you see him still working with the likes of a Dyer and a Sanchez and people like that? Because for me, I don't think he'd have a problem with it. I think he's the sort of guy that would believe he can get the best out of them. But we know it doesn't matter who the manager is. These guys will let you down after about 4 months of being in the job. So I'm guessing, like, is Ange Postecoglou is as exciting as a Slot and stuff like that? Can he work with younger players, which is what most fans want, taking us into a new era?
Yeah, I think that if that's one thing about his time at Celtic, he hasn't really brought many, local or youth players through. But having said that, he is doing it now that they've won the league. He's experimenting a bit more. I think what he tries to do is get the team up to a certain level, and then you've got the scaffolding in place to start doing that with younger players. He had to do that all the time in Australia because the Australian league is a salary cap. So it's a level playing field. Everyone spends the same amount of money. So to win the Australian league, even though, okay, it's a bit crap football, but it's still a big challenge to be successful on numerous occasions in the Australian league. And the way he did that over here was to foster local talent. And I'm sure if he stays at Celtic, he will end up doing that because like I say, he's well aware of Celtic's history and the importance of, that 67 team who are all basically born within 10 miles of the ground. And that's kind of very in tune with his football philosophy. He does believe that people from the area or local players are the ones that, give a bit of extra spirit to the club. But I take your point. I haven't seen it too much at Celtic yet. They got Callum McGregor as captain. He's a local kid, well, sort of Scottish anyway. So, but as far as would he get a tune out of Dyer? I think he'll do what he did at Celtic. He'll get us playing better. We'll start to be able to see what he can do. But then he's going for the upgrades. He's not going to hang around with someone like Dyer and Sanchez. He's not an idiot. He knows so much about players all over the world. I remember when he first started at Celtic, a couple of the journalists in conferences they're being smart asses basically, because he's this dumb Australian trying to, trip him up, asking him football stuff. And he knows everything. So, no, I not only remember that, but I remember him scoring in a 1-0 match in 1978. And maybe he does know a bit about football. So,
I think also it could be. I kind of agree with Dave. I think there's a slight risk that, the fact that he hasn't exactly incorporated as many young kids, into the team is maybe slightly concerning because it's not like Celtic don't have a good academy or anything like that. Like there have to be, certainly some good kids in there that maybe could be given a chance. And also considering maybe the fact that there are probably certain teams in the Scottish, Premiership that they could come up against and you could roll maybe, a younger player out and see how he does. It's, maybe interesting that he hasn't exactly done that, but at the same time, he's been regarded as one of the more kind of charismatic managers, one of the more kind of like, guys that is just somebody everybody wants to get along with. But maybe if he's sort of, somebody that can see through people as well, though, like a guy that can be able to kind of read people's BS, he can then be able to get rid of a guy like an Eric Dyer that way, or he then can get rid of a Ben Davies, or he then can get rid of the guys that he knows are maybe kind of faking it, or the guys that he knows are sort of maybe part of that bad culture within the dressing room. And maybe he can be able to rid it, just by the fact that he can see through some of that stuff. And also we talk about leadership, right? And we talk about accountability. I would imagine Ange Postecoglou probably would be more of a guarantee of that sort of stuff. And a lot of managers hype themselves up on the mentality, the psychology, like all that stuff. I'll be honest. I think he's probably more convincing when it comes to the psychology, when it comes to the mentality and things like that. He's a guy that everybody seems to probably not want to cross. He's a guy that everybody seems to also, though, kind of get along with. It's a bit of that Jose Mourinho where it's like you fear him, but you also love him kind of at the same time.
Yeah,
and that's where I think Postecoglou probably has a better chance of then ridding out whoever is bad in the squad just through his own sort of kind of social charisma skills and his own ability just as a human, as a character.
He doesn't get super close to players, even though he's very active in coaching. Like he takes coaching himself, but he's not pally with players. But they respect the hell out of him. The thing is, he wants to win. So we've seen since Celtic got the championship up there, he has experimented with some players. And Celtic haven't been winning. I think they drew and they might have lost one as well. So that really, he was right for not picking them earlier in the season. I guess it's not part of the winning team. Him winning and never stopping. He never stops.
My fear is that Tottenham will look for Ange Postecoglou's man management skill to get the best out of what we currently have. And what I want a new era. I want Deadwood gone. I want a new era coming in. I want some of them guys brought back from loan, the likes of the younger players, 25 and under, Spence, Gill, people like that. I want them given a chance in this Tottenham team going forward, because they can't be any worse than some of the shit we're seeing from some of these older players who just don't have the hunger and the desire for the game at Tottenham anymore. They're just going through the motions. They've been here that long. It also seems like Levy is starting to do that as well. But that's my biggest fear with someone like Ange, that Tottenham will look for him to work with Dyer, Sanchez. And I fear they don't think they'll have to decimate the squad as much as they would for an Arne Slot and someone like that. And that's the only bit of skepticism I have with an Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, you might be right there, and but also, he is very good at recruitment. So it's not like he's going to go to.
Oh, leave it like that.
Yeah, he's not going to say, "Oh, do a contest." And say, "I want Bastoni and this and that and all." Looking at the top divisions of the big leagues around the world, he knows how he wants to play football, and he knows how to spot a player that he reckons can fit into it. And he goes outside the box. God, what a fucking corporate term that is. I hate that. Sorry, man. Like you mentioned, Joe Hart. Joe Hart was all wobbly, confident shot, gets him on the cheap from Tottenham, and he's doing a bloody good job at the moment. Cameron Carter-Vickers, that's probably why they've had not good results as well, because Cameron Carter-Vickers has been brilliant in centre-back for Celtic. I'm not saying he's good enough to play for Tottenham, but Ange knew that is the kind of player he wanted, and he got him.
Yeah, look, that's one aspect that Levy will love. If Ange comes in and says, look, I want 3 players from the J League, let's bring them. He'd absolutely love that 100%. So look, everybody, that's the discussion on Ange Postecoglou. No doubt we'll get into it further along the line, but let us know what your thoughts are in the comments about it. After hearing myself and Paul, you set on Ange Postecoglou, you're a bit skeptical. Let us know in the comments. But look, let's get through some more of these super chats, very, very kindly donated by people that help support this channel, Jacko.
Yeah, Hennessy is in here, and he was in here nice and early saying, morning all, big love to the panel. As always, appreciate you, Hennessy. Let me know what you got planned this summer, I believe, because fresh off graduation, if I'm not mistaken, Hennessy. So if you have any sort of summer plans, and no more books, I imagine, no more books, stay away from them. Keep them, get rid of all the books in the house. And, hopefully you have some good plans.
Congratulations, Hennessy. Maybe a few Hennessy on the rocks, little hint of apple juice in there.
Summer drink. Awesome, man. Dermot's in the house. Big up. And he says, best of luck at the hospital, Shawnee. Big up, you guys. Big up, Dermotron. Appreciate you in here. And yes, Dave.
Yeah, just quickly, I want to big up Dermotron and Dervila. Everyone wished Dervila the best of luck. I know she was in the hospital late last night. So hopefully everything's all right, Dermot.
Big up, Dermot. And also Dermot as well. Hopefully you're able to hang in there as well and just stay strong too, brother. Hopefully you're keeping well this weekend, my man. Big up, Dermot. Give me a call this time, my man. Big up Adrian as well in the super chat, saying, without a director, football manager, we are wasting precious transfer window.
Bloody right we are.
This is my biggest bugbear, Jack. This is what I pre-warned when Conte got stacked and Stellini was put in charge. You don't have the time to piss about because it all has a knock-on effect. You know, we knew that the situation sort of around Paratici, you might have to look for director of football. They're still doing that, even though they had plenty of pre-warning that this situation was coming. And by not having a manager and a director of football, you can't repeat the same mistakes of the past where, you know, people at board level are bringing in the players and selling the players and stuff like that. You can't have that and you can't repeat them mistakes. What you need now is a manager to come in, you know, assess his squad, look at what can work, what can't work, say this guy has to go, this slot's staying, and this is where we need to replace. And you've got to work with a manager on that. So we can't even begin to prepare any of that. We're already falling further and further behind the mark. You look at Brighton, right? They've overtook us. They're in European football next year. They're already signing players. They're already signing players with a view for next year. What are we doing? Pissing about, you know, putting out stupid stuff about Eric Dyer to make him look like a bloody World War II veteran, give him a Medal of Honor. You know, he played through a bit of pain. Jesus Christ, it's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. You know, and it's sort of like we're just pissing about. It all has a knock-on effect. And by delaying your summer plans and everything else, it's going to have a knock-on effect into next season. And this is my biggest problem, Jack. How many times have you heard me say, when can we just get things right, do things in a proper manner that sets yourself up going into a season with everything you need so you can hit that ground running? And it's just an absolute joke right now. We can't, like, you know, I'm not even, apart from players out, even that I don't even believe in. I can't look at players that we're being linked with or players that are supposed to be on their way out of this football club because the reality is, club can't do anything until they have a manager and a director of football in here anyway. It's an absolute joke. And again, reeks of incompetency on Daniel Levy's behalf. You know, this guy, you know, I get Conte came out and done what he said. He had two options back then. He could have said, you know what? He's absolutely spot on and I'm going to back this guy or I'll sack him. He decided to sack him. Now, he had about what? It was like a week later or a couple, you know, after Conte made them comments when he sacked him. As soon as Conte made them comments, the club knew they were going to sack him. They should have been on a manager. They should have been looking at managers then. But do you know why we weren't? Daniel Levy was on his holidays out in Far East Asia. So Chelsea ended up sacking their manager in the meantime, and they ended up getting onto the process a lot quicker than us. And by the way, people say Todd Bowley hasn't a clue what he's doing. Well, why was he on the manager hunt quicker than us and we sacked our manager before it? You know, everything, it just weeks of incompetency. Then he brings in, he says, put Stellini in there. You know, the boys played for Stellini when Conte was out injured. So then he's saying the style of football was not the problem. Just the way Conte was the problem. Then he goes and stacks Stellini and puts Mason in charge. Jack, this is what relegation teams do. Some of the teams down there haven't even been through three managers like we have. It's absolutely disgraceful, reeks of incompetency. And, you know, by not acting the way we should in a proper, fashionable manner, in a manner that has the best clubs, the best interest of the club at heart, by looking to get onto that manager situation straight away. Because I said this before, why not bring in a manager, wipe off the last 4 or 5 games of the season and let him start to implement what he has so he can have a look at it before preseason even comes around, make his decisions to get them gone nice and early and players that he wants in nice and early to get them in here and just pre-plan for next season. And we couldn't even do that. And I'm absolutely sick of it. I'm absolutely fed up of it. And Adrian Tree is absolutely spot.
And Adrian, as well, it's what we mentioned earlier, too. I think it's the fact that there are going to be so many obstacles this summer. They're going to be arising when you're in this much of a huge mess. I mean, you can't just be spending your time on the first problem. You can't spend months on the first issue that you come across. It's kind of like when you watch those cooking competitions and then you're just watching a guy spending like 30 minutes on just one element, like of the dish alone. It needs to be able to just move quickly on things. And if it takes 15 million to get whatever manager that you've deemed is the right guy, if it takes 10 million to get whatever director of football over that you deem is the right guy, just do it. It doesn't seem like, you know, there's time really to waste here, like you said. And it's going to end up costing us like it kind of did sort of last window. I feel like we did, as much as we brought in players early, we also, I think in some sort of sense, kind of wasted time on the fact that we didn't really look at sort of maybe other center backs that maybe could have maybe been available had we not, you know, just put all of our eyes on a Bastoni or a Skriniar or those type of guys. It seemed like we just gave up after we kind of just realized we couldn't get them in here. And it feels like, again, Spurs not doing enough due diligence. And people also accuse Levy of, you know, being kind of lucky and, you know, a lot of the decisions sort of kind of just being quite fortunate and kind of going his way. some of the decisions that have gone so poorly recently do kind of maybe, test to that maybe sometimes it is just sort of him winging it. And then, if he gets right, he gets right. And then sometimes he gets, proven very wrong.
One more thing. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Paul, go on.
At the very least, even if, Conte hadn't exploded, we knew that he was going at the end of the season. So if Tottenham haven't got someone lined up to go straight into the job, June 5th, whatever, June 5th, that's when our new manager should be announced. We know that there's no planning. And I'm with you, Dave. I'm sick to my arsehole of seeing reports of Tottenham being linked with this player and that. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if it's messy, because there's no manager making that decision. Who's doing it? Who? When it just says Tottenham, who at Tottenham? It is crazy. It really is.
But one more thing why it's even more crucial for us to be smarter and ahead of the curve than anybody else. Because our owners aren't moneyball guys. They're not going to throw 300 million at it. The longer you leave it, the more chance for a player, the more chance you have of entering a bidding war. Now, we know Tottenham don't do bidding wars, and we don't win bidding wars because every other club is willing to go that bit further than us because they believe in what they're doing. We don't. It's wishy-washy. So with our business model, it's even more crucial that they act early so that you avoid that bidding war. You get into them clubs, come the end of the season, I want this guy, how much, lay it down, get it done. To avoid this bidding wars, especially with the business model we operate under. And I just can't believe we're in this situation, Jack. Actually, I can't believe it. I can't believe it because I forewarned this was going to happen for quite some time. But, just with the business model we operate under, and it's the business model they want us to operate under, for fuck's sake, do the best so that we have a chance under that business model. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we brought up before, Dave, on the fact that Stellini and Mason were being brought in. Originally, I guess the arguments were like, well, it might not actually be possible to really attract, many managers at this stage of the season. Like, I think we completely, maybe had to come to terms with that and had to realize that, yeah, you might not have the best crop of managers to pick, when the season is still going on. But we said to ourselves, if Levy really is supposedly that, set on always getting top four, if top four means everything to him, if also as well, keeping the dividends from finishing high up in the table is sort of a huge priority of his, why on earth would he then throw all of that sort of on Ryan Mason and Stellini being able to push out for the rest of the season? It really doesn't make sense. It's kind of him just throwing it in the towel. I know we said that, the players have thrown in the towel, the manager has in some sense as well. But let's be honest, I think Levy has too here. When the fact that he made that decision to put in Stellini and Mason is just sort of I don't really care. Like, I'm done with the season sort of as well. And again, it's sort of, Dave, it's like people who actually have power, the people who actually have sort of, something they can do about it, something they can actually change. They somehow are throwing in the towel and acting like a regular Spurs fan would, in this situation. It seems like they actually don't care in the decision they made to put in Stellini or Mason. And we could have gone after a Luis Enrique. Yes, he might not have been the best choice, or we could have gone after a guy that was just, free and available on a job, even a Gallardo or whatever from like South America, whoever it may be. Just feels like you said, we could have gone after somebody that we did our due diligence on, that we feel like maybe is worth giving a try in a new era. And also he would have had plenty of games to look at that squad and realize who the bad players were that he couldn't work with and the ones that maybe were worth keeping around as well. But we're going to be starting backwards and not even starting from ground zero. It feels like the more that we sort of, kind of delay here, the more that we basically will be, less than square one. We'll be kind of in a negative position.
The thing is, there's no excuse for it. I don't buy this that, we couldn't, we had to wait till the end of the season. Pochettino was available. Nagelsmann was available. Ready there and then if we went and approached them with the right gusto, but we didn't do it, So, there was options there. The reason why Stellini was put in charge, because Levy didn't want to come back off his holiday to deal with the mess. Just throw him in there. The season's over. Just throw him in there and let's see what happens.
Or even
Newcastle happened.
Even getting a proper caretaker, like Harry Redknapp for the last few games of the season. That he would have done a damn sight better job than Ryan Mason and Stellini.
But that's why I was confused about it. Like, if you're going to sack Antonio Conte and you want rid of everything that's done at this football club, You don't hire his assistant who's going to play the exact same way. You know, it's
Crazy.
absolutely reeks of incompetency. But look, we have Jerome Super Chat, and we have Fox on the Hill, Prince, and then we do have a lot more to talk about. So we will get into other topics as well. If you are enjoying the stream, though, please smash that like button. Really helps out everything we do here. Also, share the stream far and wide. Help us get to that 10K. It'd be an absolute privilege to get to 10K. All you guys have been a massive part of this channel, and for us all to reach 10K when none of us sort of believed it was possible at the start would be amazing. And feel free to support the channel buying a channel membership, which is a small monthly fee every single month, which is a great way to help us out, or send in a super chat and engage with us live and get your comment read out and discussed. But most important, we understand it is very, very tough times out there. So the very least we ask of people is just keep engaging with us in the comments. But Jack, let's take it away. Let's do Jerome super chat.
He says, people think that Ange would be underwhelming, but do you remember that Arsene Wenger came from Japan? People thought, who is this clown? And look what happened there. I never really would doubt somebody's, where they're coming from is where they're coming from, Jerome. And also, I feel like I said before, even with Arne Slot, when you're also a young manager, like you're only as experienced as you are experienced. You can't, just all of a sudden summon, 20 years of life that you haven't actually lived, yet. But in the case of Postecoglou, I don't really want to take digs at the Scottish League or anything like that, because what he's working with is what he's working with, and you can't really slight him for that. But I do feel like where you can maybe try to be a bit harsher, where if you did really want to go towards the Red X territory, is when you get into the Champions League and how maybe he slipped up, I think, in some ways there. Like I said, a lot of it I don't think really was his fault. I recall, pretty much the post or, the woodwork being rattled every single time that Celtic played. I feel like, they really were hammering the goalposts, but they ended up really, like I said, kind of falling short to teams that I think for the most part could have been beatable for how, much Celtic were kind of raved and how much Celtic were kind of hyped before the Champions League and everything. And I know Rangers as well, kind of didn't do too good either. But you do kind of feel like with the case of Celtic, everybody thought they could have maybe taken one over Leipzig. They could have taken one over Shakhtar easily, especially for Shakhtar, I think, to have finished ahead of them. And also for, I think, Shakhtar to have beaten them, if I recall, kind of convincingly in one of the games, was also kind of a bit of a worry for me. Not saying that's all on Ange Postecoglou. Maybe the whole occasion, the whole sort of pressure and, the pace of the Champions League maybe kind of got to some of his players and maybe in some way kind of got to him. But that's where I am sort of slightly worried, is maybe when it did come to the big competition, when he's coming up against better managers, when he's coming up against better players and just playing at a higher level. His football looked really good and his football looked really exciting, but it didn't end up really getting the results that, we would need. And it is a results-based business. So I am curious, is he going to be playing attractive football, but is he also going to be, getting wins, across the board as well?
Well, we've had two Spurs boys go the other way and manage in Japan. Steve Perryman and Ozzy Ardiles both had success over there. And I asked Steve Perryman, what did he think of Ange Postecoglou? And Steve said he's heard very good things about him from people in Japan. So there you go.
Look, when Wenger came over, what really worked for Wenger is he revolutionized football, not football, but in and around football back at that time with his strict fitness regime and the diet and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it wasn't just him coming over as a manager. It was also how fit he got his players, which then, gave them a serious opportunity of success because they were fitter than everybody else. It's a bit like when we had Pochettino. Our squad was the fittest in Premier League, arguably probably one of the fittest across the world. We outrun everybody. We outfought everybody, and it stood to our advantage. Over the last few seasons, our squad does not look fit. Teams are outrunning us, this, that, and the other. Now, what I would say is, what does Ange Postecoglou bring in that sort of sense? I don't think he does. I think he just brings management. I think he brings man management. And look, that's a massive part of football nowadays. Can't underestimate that and write that off because, we've seen players at our squad cry because managers don't want to tuck them into bed at night and read them ring a rosy. You know what I mean? It's absolutely disgraceful. So for me, I think, he has a serious chance of success, or not success, but a serious chance of getting Tottenham going forward with the man management style. But in order for him to continue to work, he's got to shift out the dead wood. And I'm just not sure he's going to do that. I think he believes that he can work with some of these guys, and I just don't think he realizes, or that he would realize, that 4 months down the line, these guys are going to throw the towel in. They can't keep up with the demands, this, that, and the other. And I think that's the difference between Ange Postecoglou coming to Tottenham and Wenger going to Arsenal. Wenger did have that slight difference that he brought with him. He revolutionised that, and I think that is a fair point to maybe highlight. I'm not having a dig at Ange Postecoglou.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah, because you're right. I mean, Arsene Wenger, he threw away the steak and chips pre-match meal and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if Ange has got anything like that. But I would say that, as well as his man management, he also is a very good tactician. He's a very good student of the game, and he understands football. So he does have that. But as for, does he have some sort of revolutionary next step? I don't know. I don't think he does. I don't know. I just think he's a very good manager for today.
But what I will say is his teams do seem to be grounded. Hard work is what everything is built off and based off. And that's what we need to get back at Tottenham. You hear Harry Kane talking about some of the values and stuff like that lost from the Pochettino era. Under Pochettino, to be fit, you have to do hard work. That's the base of absolutely everything. And it would be good to get back to that.
I just feel like I said, I don't know, stress it again in case, it gets kind of, misconstrued. I will never kind of criticize any manager from whatever league they're coming from. I think, like I said, what they work with is what they work with. Yeah. I do feel like where you can always look at maybe a manager a bit more with a fine, tooth comb is when they come up maybe in a big game against another big manager, against another quality team. Let's say even, you look at some of the old firm derbies, like you look at some of those, let's see how he managed against, Rangers. Let's see how, he set up tactically. Let's see in some of the bigger games like Leipzig, what he went with, how the game, maybe didn't go his way and where maybe he could have gone differently. I think that's when you can kind of look at him. I think just to criticize him because maybe he's not experienced enough because he's only been in this league or that league. I think I'll never really play that card against a manager. But what I will do is I will always kind of look at maybe individual games and kind of big, moments where, you're going to be asked to, tactically be able to either outsmart, your opponent, or you also have to make those in-game management decisions, either with personnel, substitutions, tweaking something here and there that can also win you a game. And that's where you can definitely look at a manager and see how,
he's got a pretty good record in the Old Firm. I mean, the Old Firm games, form and everything goes out the window. It's more to do with guts and I don't know how you manage the occasion, I think. And he's done pretty well in those.
Yeah. That's one thing I'll give Ange Postecoglou. Old Firm games, he has had that team mentally focused on the job in hand and not to get embroiled in, silly arguments, not being intimidated by the crowd, which I've seen Celtic teams go to Rangers Stadium and do before, and I've also seen Rangers team go to Celtic to do it before. Them Old Firms are fucking nasty. They're absolutely nasty. And one thing I'll give Ange Postecoglou, since he's been at Celtic, his teams have just been focused on the job in hand, haven't been, overawed by the occasion, haven't been affected by the occasion. Their emotions aren't affected by the occasion. They're just focused on the job in hand. And I will give that to Ange Postecoglou.
Just my last thing on Ange, I think he's a guy that really can unite the club. He's done it at Celtic against the odds. No one gave him a hope. Everyone loves him. Everyone's pulling in the same direction. I think he can get all the fans together. I think if there is a guy out there who can manage Levy, it would be Ange Postecoglou. I really do believe in the guy. I think if he's given a good chance, he could really do something quite special at Tottenham.
Yeah, look, it'd be interesting to see how it goes. For me, it want me to be brutally honest. I mean, look, someone like a Pochettino and Nagelsmann, someone like that, you would say have a good chance of success. I think the managers we're at now, it's more of a risk than, a chance, them actually having a chance of hitting the ground running. But Postecoglou, I'd rather him than someone like a Graham Potter or a ex-Bellianis goals, Mr. XG, people like that. So, But big up Jerome, big up Dermo, big up Adrian Chia, big up Moondog, guys. Really do appreciate the support and the talking points as well. And we have this from Fox on the Hill Prince, and he says, it's a shambles as a club and for Levy that we have not had a manager since 2018. Yes, 2018, that has been had a full season in charge in the dugout. Let that sink in. I mean, man, I agree with you. I agree. Honestly, just quickly, I actually think Sky Sports are watching because I brought out that Harry Kane stat before anybody else did. Now Sky Sports have that stat out about the amount of winners or points that Harry Kane has earned us. And I also mentioned this ages ago about us not having a full manager in the dugout since Pochettino for a full season in charge. Every season since then, we've had a change in the dugout. And it's just not sustainable. It's just not
never going to fucking work.
Stay at the top half of the Premier League. You know, it's only really the bottom half of the Premier League that sort of does that as frequently. And you know, you're seeing the repercussions of it now. You know, at the end of the day, we're going to get onto it in a little while. But is this club in crisis? You know, you look at the decisions we've made over the last 4 years. You've got a squad that resembles 4 different regimes. You know, and the reason why that is because you bring in a manager, last, just over a year, fired, let's get the next guy in, let's get the next guy in. And the reality is, no one at the boardroom has sat there and said, you know what? Let's actually analyse Tottenham Hotspur for a minute. Let's analyse the playing squad. Has that manager, or have we done the best we can to give that manager a chance to succeed? No one stopped and stood and looked at the squad and said, no, we haven't. That means we need to keep the manager and continue to invest in him in order to get the best, out of this manager on what we hired him here for. And we just haven't done that. We've relied on Jose Mourinho's experience in defensive nous to turn Davinson Sanchez into Nesta, Dyer into Maldini. You know, it's an absolute joke. Yeah. Then we didn't learn our lessons. They let that manager down. We didn't learn them lessons. And we go, Conte will do that. Conte failed to do it, not sack him. You know, it can't continue like this. Some stage, you've got to look at it like, fuck it, just hire me. How many times have I spoke about the back line being so costly? And now we're at the point where it's so obvious. I could see it coming a mile away 2 years ago. Just hire me, and I can tell them, I don't even want to be paid. I'll do it as a fan for free because I want to see progress. You know, if you're not going to sort that back line out, no manager has a chance to succeed. If you don't keep goals out, you don't have a chance of winning games, which then puts the manager under pressure every single game, every single week, which creates the noise around that manager, which then eventually creates more and more people getting involved, which creates him getting sacked. We can't continue like this. It has to change. I've stressed this for some time now. It can't keep going on like this because before we know it, we'll be where Everton are, avoiding relegation. I'm sorry, I cannot watch my club go backwards like that.
I think we've just fallen victim to giving the players more the benefit of the doubt than we have really the manager. I think we've always, with the past few managers, whether maybe because of their egos, their reputation, sort of the fact that they've always been controversial sort of guys, Jose and Conte, I guess, sort of came in, it felt like, with either a leg up with certain fans, like some people were absolutely thrilled to have them in, or certain fans felt like, you know, they were kind of waiting for their first little slip up to kind of pounce on them and then kind of give them, you know, that sort of that criticism. And probably in plenty of cases, the criticism was rightfully so, and the criticism was justified. That being said, though, I feel like we ended up, you know, right, giving the Davinson Sanchez's of the world, the Eric Dyers of the world, the Ben Davies's of the world, the benefit of the doubt that they actually were the ones that could actually be worth saving. And actually, it was the manager that was the problem all along. When if we gave maybe more the manager the doubt, maybe if we gave them more than a season, just more than a season, we could have actually seen, again, some of these guys actually shipped off. We could have actually seen maybe more of a clear out of the squad. I think the fact that a clear out of the squad actually hasn't even happened as much as we would have liked is probably because we haven't really given managers really all that long of a time to be able to sort of clear out teams or be able to sort of clear out the squad. Because also, when you think about it, right, Jose was brought in mid-season, so he has to sort of work with what he has, and he has to form relationships with these players, right? And he can't just sort of betray their trust right away and just sort of get them gone. He had to sort of work with them, and then eventually he gets sort of sacked too soon before he can really actually have a proper clear out. And I think the same thing happened with Conte, where he's brought in mid-season and he has to form relationships with a lot of these players, and he has to build trust with a lot of these players. And then he didn't really get another full season to be able to actually, again, work out where he needs more help, work out where he can be able to clear out the squad. And he gets sacked before he gets the chance to do it. And so that's where the next manager, whether it be Doris the Tea Lady or Dave Harris here, we need to give that person a full season just to get their assessments of what maybe went wrong. Maybe they, again, they might see, I should have got a midfielder actually, or I should have got a center back. Give them another summer, give them another season to be able to work that out. Feels like it's just sort of like, nope, you get about 10, 12 months as a manager here at Spurs. And then if you haven't convinced us by then, you're gone. And we're quickly becoming Watford, but also we're probably kind of being our own worst enemy here and leading to the delayment. That's not a word, but leading to the delay of the clearing out of the squad.
I just want to touch on something. Sorry, Paul. Just quickly. Jack raised a great point in terms of managers coming in halfway through the season and having to work with what they have to work with. Now, we have to understand, there's players at this club that, or just in general in modern football, if you get a manager sacked, the next thing you have to do is when that new manager comes in, you have to perform. You've got no option because the fans will have you guts for garters. And we're starting to see that now where fans are starting to wake up to actually what's happening with some of these guys. But the manager initially comes in. He gets the best out of some of these players that, were shit before. All of a sudden, the manager goes, hang on, there's not a massive problem here. And then you go into the summer and you're like, well, why is the defence not being upgraded? We know what's going to happen this season if you don't do it. So every manager is being tricked. It's sort of like, well, maybe the problems in that area aren't as bad as, what fans have been making.
You can't figure out the whole club in 4 months.
So basically then guys are not cleared out in the summer and they're going into the next season. And what happens in the next season? They completely capitulate. Thanks for your trust in me. I'm going to fuck you out the door now. And that's another big, massive problem. You raised a great point there, Jacko. Sorry for cutting across you, Paul.
Go ahead, Paul. And the other thing about the managers coming in halfway through the season is these players already have a relationship with Daniel Levy.
Yeah.
So the manager is coming in, supposed to be in a position of power, but they're undermined from day one. Something I only realised this a couple of days ago. There's this. It's from the All or Nothing, where
have you rewatched it?
Yeah, I don't want to watch it because I don't like seeing behind the scenes. I don't want to see who's behind the green curtain. But there's a clip of when Eriksen wants to leave. He wants to be transferred out, and he's sitting there. You've got him, Jose, and Daniel Levy discussing this, and Levy says, "Well, I'll let you go for 20 million." And I'm thinking, why the fuck is Daniel Levy in this conversation? That should be purely a conversation between Jose and the player. Why is Levy getting involved? And any manager coming in is up against that. Without a clear out of all these old players, this players committee that goes and knocks on Levy's door. Levy should be saying, "Fuck off, back to the manager. It's none of my. It's nothing to do with me." Yeah. But he likes to interfere. He thinks he's so stupid. He thinks he's a football expert, and he ain't.
It's absolutely mind-boggling at this point. It's mind-boggling. I've said this before. I think it's come to a point where, Daniel Levy got so wrapped up in the stadium and trying to keep that cost down because they were spiraling, plus the new training ground and everything else. And he said it in the documentary, he put his all into that stadium. He's completely neglected everywhere else in the club. And things have got that bad in terms of, and they've just piled up, youth system, no pathway, scouting department, first team, amount of players out on loan, no managers are able to work with exactly what's here currently. It's sort of like things have got that bad. He genuinely doesn't know where to start. And it's like he's like some of these players. They've been here too long. They've lost their hunger for and desire for what's going on at Tottenham. You got to remember, Levy and Enoch have been here 23 years. And I think it's another sort of fair question to ask. Have they lost that hunger and that desire and the passion they once had? It's very hard once you reach the pinnacle of football. Look, they didn't win anything, but they got to a Champions League final. They had a couple of close run-ins. It's very hard with that disappointment to find renewed optimism to go again. Only special people can do that, like a Harry Kane. But you look at most of the Pochettino squad after that Champions League final. no player bar Kane and Son really reached them heights again, never really reached that level again, because it's so hard to pick yourself up from being so deflated, so let down by, losing so many times on them close running. So I wonder, do they have that hunger, desire, and passion to pick it up and really go again? I'm not so sure. I think they're
in their eyes too, Dave. They might have built it up in their eyes, of course, and through their lens, they might have built it up, to this sort of stage, kind of like building a big structure, only for it to really just be kind of taken down and destroyed in front of their eyes again. And like, do they, like you said, do they want to pick up the pieces? Do they really want to go at it again? Do they have?
Jack, sometimes, though, Jack, just quickly, it's like you can say yes to them answers, but you just don't actually have the in you like you did before.
And some people are saying they didn't have the hunger in the first place. I mean, completely agree in that case. But let's just say through their lens, through their eyes, they might actually, let's say, be even less, enthusiastic, even less sort of like ambitious than they were before. And that's already, more of a concern. And they have a lot of pieces that they need to pick up. They have a lot of things that they need to clean up. And that will take, that sort of energy, that will take that sort of enthusiasm. It will take, in a sense, late nights, right? And are they willing to do that? No, they're more willing to book their holidays nice and early.
Yeah, you're spot on. It takes someone that really wants to roll their sleeves up, I'm not sure, if that was the case, then, Daniel Levy surely would have came back from his holiday in Asia and started working on getting things done quickly, right? Proof is in the pudding. But big up Fox on the Hill Prince. And then we've got Olatron, fan, football fence, says Slot is a fraud. Postecoglou is the GOAT. Look, we got to wait and see. Look, I'm one of these. I'm not going to sit here and berate Slot. Reality is Tottenham didn't want to pay the money. They put fire and order Slot in an awkward position. It looked like, by all intents and purposes, we were going to take him. That's who we wanted. But when the price was put up, all of a sudden we didn't want to pay it. I'm not going to sit here and ridicule Slot for that. Where have we seen this before? Me and Jack have spoke many times on this channel about things recently becoming deja vu. The director of football situation under Nuno, we didn't have one come in till June, And it's sort of like we're in this situation again now. You look at the manager cycle, it's the same thing every single time. Like the first time we went to go and get Conte, we didn't want to pay the money. So we ended up bringing in Nuno in here, and it's sort of, it reeks of this again. It's deja vu all the time. And for me, I'm not going to blame Slot when the club, by all intents and purposes, wanted to take this guy, but didn't want to pay the money. They put Slot in an awkward position. Where does it go after? What it comes out, Tottenham doesn't want to pay the money. Where does Slot go? He has to come out and say, look, my whole intention all the time was to sign a new contract. We know it wasn't. But the club put him in that position, and I'm not going to blame him for it.
Well, he's even come out and said that there were two clubs that he was speaking to. He did say that there were two clubs that he was looking at the project of, but ultimately he decided to go with Feyenoord. So that's the fact is, he was probably shown and tried to be, lured away by the likes of Spurs, but wasn't convinced at all. And it comes back to what we said in the very beginning, Dave, and that Spurs are becoming very much a second choice FC. And we have a question on this, in a second. I don't want to spoil it, but involved in that sort of second choice FC. And it's kind of frustrating to be I don't know. I don't like before, just 3 years ago after the Champions League final, really, we were not a second choice FC as much. We did actually have that more of that sway, more of that sort of desire, more of, that lure that people did want to come over here and people did want to kind of join the project. And now probably no one wants to touch it.
Yeah. Look, but we were always going to be in this situation. You can't have Pochettino and fail. You can't have Jose Mourinho and fail, and Conte and fail, all more or less back to back before other managers that are on the rise in the game that aspire to be to that level. If you've got the best managers in the world coming to this club and can't do it, why would a manager on the rise who, unless he's crazy and really, really thinks he can do it, why would they stake that rise on Tottenham Hotspur, on Daniel Levy? They're not.
Check out Van Football Vents as well.
Yeah, do. But that's why we're so far down the original shortlist we were given because of this exact situation. But everybody, do check out Olatron's channel if you want something a bit different from Spurs over the summer. He does League of Ireland.
I heard Sean mention something about that, and I agree with where he's coming from. I think he said that whoever's coming in pretty much as a free swing, because if Conte's failed and Mourinho's failed, well, if I come in and fail, it's no big deal. But if I come in and do something, then that makes me better than them, if you know what I mean.
I disagree with that.
In that. You think so?
I disagree with that. I really do. You look at Jose Mourinho. If he succeeded at Tottenham, would he have ended up at Roma? I don't think so. Roma is a club that needed to be rebuilt. Roma is a club that has been languishing in Italian football for quite some time. Now, fair enough, he's gone there and done it, but he wouldn't have went to Roma after Tottenham if he had a successful job at Tottenham. No way. The thing is, I get what Sean's saying in a sense, and I get what you're saying, Paul, that if they do come here and they succeed, they look better than them. But, these guys aren't stupid. They know, in order to succeed, you have to have the owner's backing. You have to have players that come to you, that not go to the chairman. If you want players gone, that chairman has to get them gone. That ain't happening. There's bigger things to that. There's a lot bigger things to that. And for me, I disagree that it's a free swing. That's why if Nagelsmann seen it as a free swing, he would have joined here straight after the boycott and sacked from Bayern Munich. He said, I'll give it a go. But he didn't. His first questions were, director of football, who is it? What's the transfer plans? You're going to get that with every single manager now. Knowing what's gone on previous. Knowing that back line has not been upgraded in terms of the way other areas have. So I don't think they see it as a free swing. I think they see it as a career ender, a career deterrent, in my opinion.
And they're asking fair questions.
That's why we're interviewing the caliber of managers we are. We ain't interviewing De Zerbi. We ain't interviewing other managers that, should have a chance at this job. The reason why we're interviewing some of the guys we are is because it's a career deterrent. We have to go out our way to sell this club to these managers. What we should be is managers that want to come to this club. The club sells itself by what they do, and that's not happening.
Well, I just also as well would want to say that I feel like if you are sort of a club that's not looking very desirable, then you have to sell yourself as like, this is going to be a difficult job, but with a difficult job, if you're successful, you'll get all the praise, right? And all the love for it. But that's where the thing is like a lot of managers are abandoning then already probably a very good project that they've already built at another club. And then they're just maybe sacrificing all of that for potentially, being different from the rest of the managers. But when they do see, the managers behind them that haven't done well before them, they just look at that as like, well, is it really worth, that much of a risk, abandoning what I have over here? And they definitely look at it. If there was a grass is greener situation, I think you look at Spurs' side, I think the grass is almost dead and, just been sunburnt, for the entire summer. It's absolutely just drained of any sort of, greenness. And so, yeah, I feel like Spurs are
also
pretty much undesirable for majority of managers. And just then means then you're just sort of having to, I guess, convince a manager of maybe something about, maybe taking on a difficult job and, the values of those sort of things, I guess.
But also, if it was seen in the general football manager fraternity that was a free hit, you'd have managers queuing up to take this job. We don't. We're begging managers to come here. And that's the difference for me. That's why I don't think managers or people in the managerial fraternity right now see it as a free hit, because none of them are clamoring to put their names forward for the job.
No.
Anyway, we'll keep moving on. We've got plenty of other things to discuss. Let's keep going. Plenty of things.
I thought maybe we just update people on technically the managerial list and just sort of show you in just a moment. I'm not sure if we have to have too much of sort of like a real discussion on it here. But apparently, according to Spurs Express, this is from just this morning, according to Dan Kilpatrick, Julian Nagelsmann, Brendan Rodgers, and Luis Enrique have been admired by Spurs at one time or another. They certainly have been admired by Spurs at one time or another. Definitely haven't exactly been admired by the managers, you would say. They haven't exactly shown us a lot of love. But also as well, this came from Dave Hartner of The Guardian last night, and it was Ruben Amorim and Postecoglou, your man, and Luis Enrique remain candidates for the Tottenham job. Roberto De Zerbi is also admired, but is very unlikely to leave Brighton. So if you, Casey, did want to know what sort of the managerial list looked like in any sense, it is basically Ange Postecoglou, I guess, is being considered as more of a serious contender, as according to the headlines today. And again, everybody, just want to reiterate this. We're really just regurgitating headlines for you so that really you don't have to go through the weeds yourself, not making any bold claims of any sort. We're just regurgitating headlines that people have brought up here and then giving our responses, giving our reactions on it. In no way are we claiming to be any sort of ITK on this sense. It's really just what you can see in the news, just filtered in a nice little discussion, of a show here. And then also, lastly, Vincenzo Italiano, Fiorentina manager, is on the Tottenham list, according to DiMarzio, which I really probably only find that to be maybe in the headlines because he's probably coming up against the bubble blowers, in a conference.
In the words of Conor McGregor, who the fuck is that guy?
Oh, good. It's not just me. I'm thinking I'm Mr. Football Idiot here. I don't know who the fuck that guy was.
It's like a made-up name, Vincenzo Italiano.
The names on that list is really, I think it's either going to be Enrique, Potter, or Rodgers, because they're all out of a job and it ain't going to cost us anything to get them. And that's what we do at Tottenham.
Yeah. Like, forget
and if that's the case, why the fuck didn't we get them in March?
Yeah, forget about Amorim. On me, I would actually love to take a peek at Amorim. I really like what Amorim is about. However, the Sporting paid 20 million to get him in. He signed a new contract and they upped that to 30 million. If we ain't paying 15 million for Slot, we ain't paying double to get Amorim, plus whatever it'll take on top of that to get his staff out, plus his wages. You could be talking 40, 50 million. So Amorim, I do not believe them reports on him whatsoever. I agree with Paul. And, Paul, I actually think we had this discussion before where we genuinely think it is going to be a manager out of a job, a Rodgers, an Enrique, someone more like that. You look at our past history. The last 3 managers have all been out of a job. We're not capable of attracting a manager in the middle of a job because we have nothing to offer them.
I thought maybe we bring up this quote that actually came from The Athletic here from Jack Pitbrook and the likes of Charlie Eccleshare. And I feel like we've been sort of saying this in some sense without actually, maybe having any, real good catchphrases for it. But I guess this is one that you could say that's come through this article here. It says that prospective Spurs head coaches are seeing Tottenham as a manager's graveyard and have been given pause for thought. I feel like, Paul, this all sort of falls in line with what maybe we've been saying about sort of the Spurs job, with how maybe previous managers have been treated, or also as well when it comes to maybe the fact that they failed and, maybe been, kind of not backed by either the owner, or just the fact that each of them have barely even lasted a year sort of shows that Spurs aren't exactly maybe a very attractive club. And most, like we said, managers are going to be given a bit more pause for thought when considering the job. And it probably doesn't really surprise us that Nagelsmann is coming in with all these questions. You have Arne Slot, kind of, making us look silly for his own, sort of benefit. A lot of managers are not exactly jumping at the job here for Spurs, but the fact that there is sort of some sense of, confirmed news on the fact that managers do speak to each other and they are sort of referring to Spurs as a manager's graveyard. What do you make of that? And then how do we get rid of that?
Well, I think it's probably not without reason, is it? I mean, it's not just recent managers. We've got the history. We're going back to Martin Jol, Redknapp, where, a manager will get us up to that certain point, and just where you think we could kick on, we stagnate. We start going backwards, then the manager gets sacked. So, I'm sure managers do talk to each other. They probably have their WhatsApp groups or whatever. And, but how to beat it? Well, you got to get a manager for where the level we are and start small again and win something small. So, what you were saying earlier, David, about all the players being all distraught over losing the Champions League final. I say, fuck them. Get off your ass and go and fucking do it again. And you know what? Maybe that ain't going to be Champions League. Maybe it's going to be Conference League. Maybe it's going to be the Carabao Cup. But it's got to be something. That's how you build something. You don't just leap in and win the fucking Champions League.
The thing is, though, Paul, you look at the players that have been left around from the Pochettino era: Sanchez, Dyer, Davies.
Yeah,
they weren't starters in his team. They weren't.
Well, that's it. We stagnate. So
we're asking players that weren't in the first place to go again.
I can go back even further, man. It from pretty much, I'd say after 87, after 1987, we've always been 2-3 players short, selling our best players, not kicking on, stagnating. We've been doing it for nearly 40 years. The same fucking shit.
Over multiple ownerships, I guess, in that case. It's just the Spurs way. I I would kind of say maybe on the manager graveyard, just I guess like, in a lot of ways we've kind of covered, and sort of a sense of it. But just wanted to say, everybody, if you were curious, there is an article out there by The Athletic that sort of is, kind of looking at some sort of managers at the past at Spurs. And apparently they're sort of talk to each other in some sense. And like I said, kind of referring to sort of Spurs in a way as sort of a manager's graveyard. And it's what Dave and I think have brought up before, in that you do sort of develop a reputation. Managers do sort of speak to each other. I think even when I read sort of a book called, I think it was called Footballnomics or Soccernomics, they looked at like Gus Hiddink, and apparently he's always hanging out in like some Amsterdam coffee shop talking to other like Dutch managers about tactics and whatnot. Or probably German guys in Vienna coffee shops, discussing, what's going on in football in the world. They do speak to each other. They do have decent relationships. And there's probably a bit of gossip, I imagine, between themselves about why maybe something didn't work out here, why maybe things weren't the best at certain clubs, why certain clubs maybe aren't successful. We even talk about this as fans. I imagine they probably talk about it as fans of the game themselves. So it does make you think, with managers who have had experience with Spurs, after they're done with it, they maybe go to some of their managerial friends and say, boy, do I have some stories to tell you about Spurs? Do I have some stories to tell you about Daniel Levy? And it just maybe becomes the case that perhaps we just, have developed a certain reputation that a lot of managers who have friends here and there in certain circles won't come to us. And the managers that will come to us maybe aren't in those circles, or are also just guys that are naive and guys that are, willing to take on, a difficult job because it means that they can progress further in their career. I think that's another thing. That's why I was disappointed even the whole Slot, the Arne Slot thing didn't go through, because felt like a guy that made a logical step in his career to take on a job like Spurs. But even he saw it as maybe too much of a risk, for his own career, which is kind of crazy to think about. So it really has to be a guy that's willing to take on all of this risk, take on all of this pressure, and maybe he can come out, successful. But if he doesn't come out successful, then he has to consider how that, like David said, could maybe hurt his career, could hurt his progression. So it's a lot of things here with the graveyard. A lot of
stigmas attach themselves like a bad smell, and it works both ways. Graham Souness, Roy Keane, people like that. Why don't they? Why don't they get considered for manager jobs anymore? Because the clubs they've been known for their fiery personalities towards players and towards owners. That sticks. That then eventually stops people taking a gamble on you, stops putting you in for jobs. And it's likewise with chairmans. Managers, you'll get some managers that take a job because they want the money anyway. But, it also attaches itself with chairmans. If chairmans keep making wrong decisions and make manager jobs hard, that also carries around itself. You got to remember, you're in a day and age where managers aren't keeping what they do behind closed doors and secrets anymore. You've got managers going all over the world, going in with managers, especially when they've been sacked from another job, going in and learning off people. Ian Holloway was one. He got sacked from somewhere. Before he went to Blackpool, he went out to Spain and learned off a club out there. Brought that football to Blackpool, got them to the Premier League. You look at Eddie Howe. He was over learning off someone before he got the Newcastle job. These managers, they bring other managers in, show them their ways, their techniques. They're friends now. They speak, and they're at a point now where good managers who know their worth, they pick their clubs carefully. They know they have to have the backing of the chairman. They aren't magic. With football's being paid so much money nowadays, the work ethic in a footballer is gone. The reality is the more money you earn, the less drive you end up having. That's just the truth of it. You become more and more comfortable. And it's sort of like,
and if they're also coming and going.
It's harder now for managers to get players to do what they want them to do than it was before. Because before, players actually had to earn that wage. They had to earn it. Now, you're in a period where managers are being sacked because it's cheaper to do than it is for a player. So, a manager now has to come in and try and get these players to do what they want. But to do that, they know they have to have full support of the chairman in terms of dropping players and getting them gone. They need that back into double down on that decision and stuff like that. And if they're not going to have that, they ain't coming because they don't have a chance to succeed, and it puts a stain on their CV.
But they also know that nowadays, Paul, you're not given 2 or 3 years, a benefit of the doubt. You're kind of judged within like 10 or 12 months, of taking the job. And you might already be without the job, after a year, like we've seen in the case of Spurs. So that's another reason why these managers are going to be very careful about who they go to next, because they don't get, 3 or 4 years of leeway. They only get 10, 12 months. And then that's when, they really get judged. So that's another thing, right? Why would they go into a job that they might think they might not be able to be convincing enough within a year or something like that as well?
But the other side of it, I think, as well, is that, managers could just see Tottenham as a payday. The more I think about Conte, even though I was really, behind him, especially this last season, he just didn't seem to have any affection for the club. Didn't really want to be here. I don't even know
that was
how
the case in the beginning. He wanted to be here. I think he showed affection in the beginning.
But we do this to every manager, though. We do this to every manager that comes in the door. Even when Pochettino was leaving, although he had that 5 years, he was also losing his sort of, connection to the football club, because the owners make it so hard for these guys to operate. Of course, you're going to lose it. If you're trying to do things and at every turn you're encountering obstacles, eventually you're just going to give up, Paul.
Yeah, I don't know. Conte has just left me with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, and I'm just wondering, did he ever really want to be here? Because he turned the job down first, and then, we chucked a bag of cash at him, and maybe his heart wasn't in it from the get go as much as we thought. I don't know. Maybe that's not true, but I just really, more than anything, I just want a manager that wants to be at Tottenham, that knows about us and wants to, bring some of that feeling back, not just someone who is out of work and wants to collect a few million until something better comes along, like those three managers that are out of work at the moment.
Agreed.
Adrian Chia saying here, I bumped into an old lady at Tesco and she dropped her shopping. I apologized and asked her, can you manage? She said, sod off, lad. I don't want the Spurs job. I actually said also as well yesterday, I think at this stage, Spurs are probably going to maybe consider putting the job out on Indeed.com, Paul, perhaps ZipRecruiter. You might see, maybe even a certain email from a Daniel Levy, maybe in your inbox soon, asking you if you could take the job. It feels like Spurs.
Well, I said this last night. I have not been in contact with Tottenham Hotspur. I'm going to continue working at Wollongong Wombats FC as chief toilet cleaner. They've given me a bonus of some extra bog rolls to stay around, so I'm ruling myself out of the Spurs job. But thank you for the consideration.
Even Paul's become second choice.
Two things. If this continues, I'm going to need half of that bog roll, Paul. So send it via, what's that American company, Jack? Fastway or whatever it's called. FedEx. Send it through FedEx. I need some of that. But look, the reality is it's that bad. I wouldn't be surprised to see Conte on the list to get back his own job. It's getting that bad. The last thing I will say, do you know how bad it's getting? Do you know how bad it's getting? I love football banter. I love the rivalry. I love banter in every other club, even when we're shit. For me, it's fun. It's a bit of a laugh, this, that, and the other. My friends don't even want to banter me anymore. They feel sorry for me. They say, Dave, I feel so sorry for what you're going through and everything else. And even that fun's gone. Football is just not enjoyable anymore. It's a joke.
It's the worst. Like, I do a bit of Ubering, and sometimes I get football people in the back, and we start talking football. And if I'm either wearing this kit or I say I support Tottenham, I can tell even the Arsenal fans, they just feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of too much even for them.
Pure disgrace.
Well, I think even because Spurs fans feel like we don't even have even much to fight back with, so they're just kind of like people's just sort of doing, what's the point of taking a dig out of him? He knows that he knows their shit. He knows they're in a bad situation.
We're shit from the top all the way down.
What we have to celebrate. We won one League Cup in 23 years.
Fucking
won
hell.
one Audi Cup, and we finished above Arsenal for 5 years straight. That's what we've got. That's what we've got to come back with. It's disaster. You can't even come back with, look who we've got in the back line. Look who we've got. You can't even come back with any of that. It's like, you just got to sit there and take it. You just got to sit there, let them pull down your pants and railroad you. It's a joke. I'm fed up with it.
Bend over.
I do appreciate the support, but do let me know if actually the cashier, maybe the manager that Tesco was actually, maybe they're interested as well. Maybe not just the lady in Tesco, maybe anyone else in the store. Ask them as well, see if they're interested in the job, because we are desperate, my friend. We are desperate.
Jack, the local manager from my Tesco store, I'm pretty sure if I look deep enough into one of them betting sites, he's on the list. It's a joke.
I think he actually took an upgrade to a better Tesco to become a manager. Everyone, he became second choice. But we're going to get through just a bit more.
Quickly,
I
just want to take these 2 comments, Jacko.
Yes.
Brian Dempsey, my man, there's a join button down below. If you want to click on that, it brings up the memberships and the tier list. Now, what I will say to everybody is over the summer, when we finally get a break from the fucking amount of news that's coming out, we will be looking at upgrading them memberships and offering different perks and working out. But we do want your guys' help as well. Let us know what you would like for the different tiers of memberships. That would be absolutely brilliant. And hopefully we can provide that for you guys. So please do let us know and put suggestions for us. But there is a join button down there for anyone that does want to become a member of the channel. Big up, Brian. And do you know what, Brian? It'd be nice to see you on a fan show soon, my man, and have a conversation. You've been around for quite some time, and it'd be good to get you on and have a good conversation with you about Tottenham, Brian.
Big up, Brian.
Big yourself up. And then we've got Paul Gregory. Big up, Paul. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. I haven't seen you in a while. And he says, unfortunately, this is a serious question, but do you think top 10 would be a good achievement next season, especially with the emergence of other mid-table teams? No. I get what you're saying in terms of where we're at now and how bad it could get. I get it. But from where we were to what we're talking about now, no. And, get the owners out if that's the case. They need to get out now. Like, it's at a point, like, we all sit here and we say, well, if the money comes in, we want them to sell. It's actually at a point now, it's getting that embarrassing. They need to actively go and find people to buy this football club, in my opinion.
For me, I would be disappointed just if I was like finishing 8th and 9th. I would be disappointed. I would be let down. I wouldn't be happy about it. Am I going to be going after the manager's head? Absolutely not. Like, I will, support the manager if he finishes inside the top 10. I think that's, credit to the manager. He still has probably a lot to work with. Even if he gets a lot over the summer, I'm not going to fall victim or fall to, the mistake of, he got all this, maybe he should be doing better. Perhaps we could be looking elsewhere. Let's try to give a manager over a season, no matter almost where they finish. I feel like if the manager can finish inside the top 10, give him another season.
I think if we've got no Harry Kane next year, then top 10 would be a bloody miracle.
That's another good point.
Love that. And then we'll take this from Kieran. Big up, Kieran. Hopefully you keep him well. Sorry. He says, I got the train to Dublin last Saturday for the Katie Taylor fight, Dave, and couldn't find my train ticket at the other end. Guy at station said, don't worry, support Spurs. It's bad enough. And you know what? That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me, and it's true. I'm jealous that you actually went to the Katie Taylor fight. First of all, where's my invite? I mean, there was 2 Kildare lads on the card. One that grew up in the town I grew up in, another guy that grew up 5 minutes away from me. So a bit disappointed there, Kieran, but hopefully you had a good day. But it doesn't surprise me, brother. Big yourself up, and hopefully you are keeping well. You're an absolute legend. And if anybody does want to become a channel member, the link is here in the chat. We've made it easy for you rather than you having to go and rummage through and everything else. So Brian Maguire, there it is for you, sir. But if anybody else is thinking about it, $1.99 a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month, feel free to grab and help support your boys on this journey. And all we're trying to do is just keep providing a platform for Spurs fans. You see our fan shows, they go on for 4 or 5 hours just to let fans have their say, air their opinions, and voice their opinions. And we are providing something that the football club itself is not providing. So if you want to support that, feel free to do it through a small fee every single month through a membership. And also big up Brian Dempsey. He has upgraded. Let's see what he's upgraded
to fan show, Dave. Brian, I hope to be speaking to you later, my friend. I hope to be speaking to you, Brian. Hopefully we can get you on at some stage. And especially with a summer ahead, Brian, maybe not as, many games to put you down or anything, a summer of fixing Spurs. Hopefully you enjoy that kind of that chat. That's what it's going to be mostly about this summer. It's just fixing Spurs. And if you enjoy that type of stuff, come on and have your say, everybody.
You go, Brian. And everyone, if you could, keep smashing that like button. There's over 200 in house, nearly reaching 300. Please, let's get over 200 likes on this stream. Feel free to share out far and wide. Your boys are so close to the 10K. I can taste it, and I really want it. I just want to sit here and say I've done something half meaningful with my life. So if you want to help that, share it out and, get people to enjoy it. Even just say to them, look, just fair deal. At least listen to the lads, and if you enjoy it, then subscribe. But please, I just want to feel like I've achieved something half meaningful in my life. So help me out. And also feel free to keep engaging with us through this live content via Super Chat. We'll share your thoughts, your opinions, and we'll have a great discussion on it. But Jack, we still have more talk about. Believe it or not, it's a sign of the times we're at with Tottenham. So let's keep moving.
I thought we kind of end maybe the depressing manager chat with just answers. I thought we kind of got everything off our chest here. And like I was saying this earlier to Dave, Paul, we were able to kind of get everything that we wanted off our chest. And even if it's a list of bad choices that, you're picking from, even if it's a list of managers that you don't want, I think now we've sort of explained that, there are plenty that, are out there. Let's kind of pick amongst this list right here. If Rodgers, Luis Enrique, Postecoglou are the remaining managers available, which does sort of seem to be potentially the list, not saying it is, who would you like to see Spurs bring in? I'm pretty sure I know yours, Paul.
Brendan Rodgers, blow my army.
Davo, if you had to pick, my friend. Like I said, you got everything off your chest. You got everything off your chest. You can't cop out of the answer,
Do you want me to be brutally honest? We're that far down the list. I'm not really enamored or inspired by anyone. It's more looking at it. Can they come in and just get us moving in the right direction? Look, I do like Ange Postecoglou. I do like what he's about at Celtic. I do like the job. With the amount of overgrown, oversized man children we have, I like to complain more about not being petted, not being fork-fed at lunchtime and all that sort of bollocks. Ange Postecoglou's your man. He will sit there. He'll be like, open up the airplanes coming, just to feed them and all that sort of crap. He will do that. Ange Postecoglou will do that. And he does play football that excites me, right? He does. Enrique, my biggest fear with Enrique is that he comes in and gets Kane out. You look at every club he's been at. Roma, he tried to get rid of Totti. Backfired, cost him his job. Barcelona, until he got them going, he was having risks with Messi. You don't do that. And I know why he does it, because it's sort of like if you can get the biggest star at that club to fall in line, and if he doesn't and you can drop him, everyone else then sort of falls in line behind, because well, hang on, if he can do it to that guy, I better up my game here. However, with the precarious position we're in with Harry Kane right now, where we don't know whether he's going to sign, and in my opinion only, you don't want to lose him because then you add to your problems.
You would probably say Enrique.
Sure he's the right guy to come in here right now. Yeah. I'm really not. If Kane leaves, maybe he might be the right guy. But for me, Rodgers, I think safe pair of hands. Think, okay, I'll get you playing different to an Antonio Conte and a Jose Mourinho. But again, I feel like he's a safe pair of hands. I get the job he's done at Leicester. I get he got Liverpool close to a Premier League title. Just not sure that guy is there anymore. I think he's a safe pair of hands.
It's hard to say. Like it depends what Rodgers you get. Are you going to get the Rodgers that did the treble with Celtic, even though Rangers were suffering in a pit of their own deserved making, and the Rodgers that went to Liverpool, or are you going to get the Rodgers that look bloody knackered for the last 2 years?
Yeah.
I personally feel like Rodgers, I just don't think he's. I think we probably have seen maybe the best of Brendan Rodgers. All respect to him, but I think we have probably seen the best of him at his stages at either Liverpool or the likes of Leicester. It just feels like he's been around for so long. I'd be surprised if he has anything sort of tactically, innovative enough that sort of would surprise people. Also, in his European goes, he hasn't exactly been very good. Leicester City haven't really pushed very far in the European competitions, despite qualifying for them. I don't think they've ever really done all that well when he's been in them. And then, of course, he's won them an FA Cup and he's pushed really high in the Champions League. And I feel like that gets kind of missed when it comes to Rodgers. I think he's done quite a good job at Leicester City before, obviously, this season. This season, everybody in the team, including him, kind of threw their toys out of the pram. But they all absolutely, I think, deserve blame for it. But to be fair, like, he was punching well above his weight, it felt like, with Leicester City. He was having them challenging for what, second or third for almost 3/4 of a season, it felt like, with Liverpool at one stage. So he has shown that he can get his team humming and he can get his team really playing quite well. But I just feel like another thing is he's always never really got over the line, though, with those teams. They always kind of fell short. They always kind of bottled it in some sort of manner, or they always seem to kind of, just like I said, kind of bottled it in some type, either with Liverpool or with Leicester City. And I'm just curious to see if, that's another thing that, is probably, some Spurs fans would look past. I think I'm going to look past it. I don't really like that fact, with him, that he's basically missed a lot of opportunities. I think he's done a great job at Leicester City and he's shown that he is successful there, but for some reason or another, he always seemed to fail. Even us, Dave, remember when we got Conference League, we kind of spoiled his chances of getting the Europa League or his chances of getting Champions League that season with Gareth Bale, with all the goals and everything. So it just shows that, in the big moments, he has failed, actually, Brendan Rodgers. Luis Enrique, I agree with you, Dave. He would probably isolate one of our best players. And another thing, too, is I feel like he's less of a man management type manager. He's not exactly going to be the charisma sort of guy. He's going to be more the tactically innovative sort of person that's going to outsmart maybe his opponents, but he's not going to be like an Ange Postecoglou that's going to get all the team, unite the fan base, type of manager. I don't think he's going to be that sort of guy.
And he's tick-attacker, and I don't like tick-attacker.
I don't exactly. Also, the way kind of Spanish teams have been playing recently, I don't find it to be as exciting as some people might find it. I find it to be actually a bit too possession heavy and a bit too kind of methodical and, taking too little risks, I think, also as well, the way they kind of play.
I do want to stress this as well. Look, I'm one of these. I don't blame the managers at this football club. I blame the infrastructure around them for them to be able to succeed at this football club. Now, I must stress, although I'm not inspired by the names on the list, there are other names I would have rather, Pochettino, Nagelsmann, someone like that would have really sort of said, do you know what, renewed hope, renewed optimism, let's fucking go and give it everything. These next guys that come in, I'm not really inspired, but for me, I'm still going to give an opportunity to see what they can do. However, the fact that we're this far down the fact that we're this far down the list, the fact that we're talking to this sort of level or caliber of manager and not dining at the top table, which is where we got, it shows how far we have dropped off as a football club over 4 years. And it shows why fans find what's going on right now as completely unacceptable. It shows why everyone wants these owners out. It shows why everyone in the media, pundits, ex-players, players in the squad, fans, they're all fed up. They're all speaking out because it's the sign of the times where we're at, And it's sort of like me, it doesn't really give me a stiffy, doesn't give me great inspiration going into next season, which I feel as a fan where I'm at now, I need it. But look, I do want to throw this comment at Paul here. I think it's a bit of a valid point here from Danny. And by the way, as well, big up Matthew tuning in from India. Good to see you tuning in. And also Savi and Morlar as well. Sean D as well. But Danny, Paul, he says, to the guy at the bottom, just want to ask you, big up Ange so much because of his, do you big up Ange so much because of his Celtic spell? But what about Roberts, who was successful at Celtic, but also played a part in Leicester's relegation?
Okay, so when Rodgers was at Celtic, that was when Rangers were still coming out of because they were relegated because they were administration, so he had less competition. But no, I'm not bigging up Ange just because of Celtic. I'm pleased to see what he's doing at Celtic, but it's really I've been following for like 20 years since he was Australian youth coach and coached the Australian national team, and he took an Australian team that was kind of past our golden generation, which was around about 2006. We were on the wane, and somehow he got us to play really good football. He qualified us for, he won us the Asian Cup, which is huge. I mean, you're beating teams like, Japan, South Korea and Iran, who England couldn't beat. So they're not mug teams, not European standard, I grant you, but still, it was the way, it was the spirit that he got Australia to play with that really caught a lot of football fans' attention over here. And also, he left on his terms. He got fucked around by the Australian suits because they wanted him to do this and do that. And he said, well, bollocks to you. And then he went to Japan and had success there, and then went to Scotland and had success there. So Celtic is kind of just another stage in his success story. He's been successful all through his career.
There you are, Danny. Let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree, my brother. We have Adrian Chia says you guys heard Ramon Vega's story on the Spurs match. No, I haven't, my man. Put it in. Let us know. Have you heard it, Paul?
Yeah, he mentioned something interesting about he was, I think it's an under-17s tournament remaining or something like that. And he said there were scouts from all clubs there, but there was no one from Tottenham watching these kids. I mean, that says a lot to me.
I think maybe it's something to do with the stadium atmosphere or something like that. It could also be that. I think I've heard Ramon Vega come out before.
Oh, yeah,
about the stadium atmosphere being
like a pub.
Oh, okay.
He said it's more like going to a pub. It doesn't feel like a football club anymore.
Going into the new ground, feels more like a pub than it does an actual stadium. If that's what it was, Adrian. Adrian, no need to put in another super chat either. Just put it in the chat if that's
and I think that's
Adam Phillips, said it's a giant pub. Yeah, I think I might have saw that article.
And I think that's a really fair point. Like, I got a mate here, and every time I talk about how shit Spurs are, he'll say, "Yeah, but at least you've got the longest bar in Europe." Like that makes up for it all. And, all these nice facilities and all that sort of shit, man. I used to stand on the shelf with a polystyrene cup of fucking Bovril and felt like a king. Why do fans need all this bullshit around football now?
Look, whether we agree with it or not, right, it's the way the modern day is going. But if you walked up to that stadium, you've seen a statue of Jimmy Greaves, Keith Birkinshaw, people like Bill Nick, people like that. You've seen the gates that were taken away to be restored. They were put somewhere along there. They're going to put the clock back. But there are things they can do. That when you're walking up to that stadium, it's more than going in to enjoy yourself with your mates, like a pub atmosphere. You're reminded of the history, the great times. You go in there at nude energy. We want to go out there. We want to get that back. We want to, we're inspired by it. We want to sing, get behind these boys for glory and stuff like that. And until more of that stuff starts happening, for me, I think it'll always feel like that if you want me to be brutally honest. You've got like... Do you know what's sad? Right? And it's only sort of started popping up lately, and I don't know why. But as people know, I listen to a lot of ex-managers, players, and all, people from the game. They all do long podcasts and stuff like that, and it's brilliant, and you get some great insights. But lately it keeps popping up when they ask, what's the best away atmosphere or what's the best ground or atmosphere you've played in? So many people say White Hart Lane. One of the best, so close to the pitch,
Rocking,
you sort of being lost into the new stadium. It doesn't have that intimidation atmosphere it once had, and there's so many more things that the club could do to incorporate it. Like, for instance, they wanted to recreate the atmosphere from the White Hart Lane into the new stadium. Did they go to the fans about how to do it? Did they put the fans back in the same areas to be able to recreate that? No. They went to sound experts, panel experts, stuff like that. And it's like, you need to get more of that history and that heritage in and around that stadium for
Absolutely.
It to feel
That's a good point, Dave. Right. They went to all the technical experts. They went to all the focus groups to, about what makes a good stadium. But the one thing they forgot was to also get the input from actual Spurs fans on what they maybe
It really does feel like the owners are ashamed of it. Like, if they could work out a way to run their business and just fold up the football club, they would. They're just not into it. It's almost like they're ashamed of us being a football club. They want to be this boutique brand of entertainment and excitement and fine dining and culinary delights, and football just gets in the fucking way for them. And you're right, Dave, like, why the hell we haven't got a fucking statue of Bill Nick or Danny Blanchard or Jimmy Greaves? And you hear that twat Levy talking to the Cambridge students saying, "Oh well, we could get a statue for Harry Kane. Fuck that. Fuck that. There are so many people that should be getting that above Harry Kane. I love Harry Kane, man. But when you're looking at the roots, the foundation of Tottenham Hotspur, you're talking about Arthur Rowe, Bill Nick, Danny Blanchflower. These are the people. They're the ones that get your juices flowing, you know, when you're going along with your grandkids. Who's that? Well, let me tell you about Big Nick. It passes the stories and the legends on. And that's so important for the feeling and culture of football.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's, you know, that's where you want to get at, where you're walking towards that stadium with your kids or grandkids and they're asking you about what that's about. That's where we need to get to. You're absolutely spot on. We've got a super chat here. Big up Adrian Trier, by the way. Great super chat that sent us into a very good conversation, my man. Really appreciate that, brother. And then we've got Scorpions for Life here, and he says, the club is so toxic, it's damaging friendships. Local fans still back in Levy, and I argue day and day about it. A lot of fans never backed Jose and Conte. Do you know what? I was actually going to say something towards the end of the stream. I'm going to get it now, and I had to write it down yesterday because, you know me, my brain operates at 20 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour, and it's sort of like, if I don't write it down, I forget. And this probably sums up exactly where we are at, my man. So just give me 1 second, right? Listen to this. We were a team in Europe. Now we're a team out of Europe. A club everyone loved to watch. Now they turn off their TV when we're on. We are a club that everyone wanted to be run like. Now we're a symbol on how not to run a football club. We had players every club in the world wanted. Now the only player people want is Harry Kane. We were everyone's second favorite team. Now we're everyone's favorite team to laugh at. We were a club who had the world at our feet. Now we're a club the whole world want to beat and enjoy beating. We were a team that used to play great football to a team who now cannot play football. And that's exactly where we're at right now. But not only that, there's arguments left, right, and centre. The whole thing is a cesspit, my man. You know, you've got arguments at board level between Donna Cullen and Daniel Levy who want different things. You've got, you know, you've got the managers always arguing with the players. You've got in-house fighting amongst the squad. You've got fans tearing each other apart at every level of this football club. People are ripping each other apart. And that's the saddest thing. We are all going through this together. We are all taking this shit together. Now, look, some people, it's just natural in life, have a higher threshold for shit than other people do. Some people can't tolerate it, right? But this fighting between fans has to stop. If we want any change at all, the arguments have to stop. It has to stop. The only way it's really going to be listened to, because let's be honest, it's out there in the media. Pundits are talking about it. Ex-players, players in the squad are all coming and talking about it. But unless fans come together and you get 20, 30,000 people marching down Tottenham High Road, forget about getting the change. Forget about these owners going and looking for people to offload this club too. You have to come together. The whole thing is becoming a cesspit. Everyone's arguing left, right, and centre from boardroom down to the fans. I'm absolutely fed up and sick of it. You know, I'm a guy, I used to love football. I enjoy football. I'll be honest. Football has been my whole life. You know, it's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever known. I'm not book smart or anything like that. One thing I like to think I know is a little bit about football. I can't even enjoy football anymore. That's how bad it's got. I can't sit there on the weekend and watch games anymore because I watch teams doing things the right way, doing the basics of football, and we just can't do that anymore. That's how fucking bad things have got, Scorpion for Life. It's dreadful, man. It's a cesspit.
You know, I'd just say, man, you know, it's not worth losing your friendships over. And like Dave say, you know, some people do have a high tolerance for shit, but also, you know, I think some people they just want to enjoy the football, all the politics and ownerships. They don't give a fuck about it. And I don't think that's right or wrong, you know, but just people, you got to let people think and feel what they feel. And if you start arguing and debating and, you know, fighting with people, then you're just going to dig your heels in. They're going to dig their heels in. And it's, you know, the only way to do this, you know, I'm an old hippie, so fuck it, you know. You just need a bit more love out there, you know, instead of a bit more hate and anger and, you know, petty squabbles, and let people come and find their own way to to how they feel about the club. And if I'm pretty sure the way things are going, that you can see it more and more people, like you say, David. It's in the media's talking about it. There's fan channels that, even though they weren't Levy in, they wouldn't go on about Levy all the time. They try and talk about the football. And you know what? Sometimes that's all I want to see. I just want to fuck all this shit over here and just hear people talk about the football. So there is a place for that. But even those guys now are having enough. So, I think we'll all get there in one day. But don't fight with your mates over it. It's not worth it.
I think especially with a football club, all we have, when it gets to this bad of a situation, really all we have is each other. Like, that's kind of like, well, if we're I think if you're to start attacking your fellow fan, and this is just my opinion, but I think that's almost like a dog chewing its own tail. In my belief, I think that's just, you're attacking yourself. You're sort of attacking your own body. You're attacking your own strength, really, because we are sort of the separation between us and sort of what we call, right, the Enoch enterprise and everything. We are the separation between that. So if we're all of a sudden going to be attacking ourselves, we might be losing sight of the original people that we're supposed to be targeting in the first place.
Yeah. I just hope one day it can come to an end, Scorpions fan for life, my man. Like me, I'm not as far as others where, for me, it's 23 years. For me, I've always maintained, and I've always said this, for me, my problem is the last 4 years. And I always want to try and see the best in the club. I always want to try and, plot a way forward. And I want to be a happy clapper. The reality is, there's nothing left to happy.
Yeah, right, man.
I've had enough, I'm at my point. I've had a fucking enough. My passion is going, my desire, my hunger. It's all starting to be drained away from me. I just find everything about this club draining right now. And it's just to the point, the only way out of it is if many fans come together. I don't mind fans debating with each other from different sides of the coin. I think that's great. I love different opinions. I think it's fantastic. But we've just got to stop blaming you're the problem, this, that, and the other, and find a way of meeting in the middle ground and getting behind something and actually, really getting voices really heard. There's so many people out there that have done the legwork for that. But now it's time for people really to come together and make their voices heard unanimously.
You know what spoke volumes to me? You remember, like, before the who did we play last? I've forgotten. It was shit, wasn't it? Was it? Who did we play last weekend?
Oh, fucking! Do you know what? It's been that long, I can't even fucking remember.
Anyway, we lost. But before the game, on the build-up, we were talking about, when the players do their lap of honour or get their awards, do you think the fans will boo or cheer? And we were sort of, I've forgotten who was saying what, but someone was saying, sorry? Brentford, there you go. Yeah, so it was, I thought it'd depend on the result, and I think you were saying one thing, and we were all wrong, because when it came down to it, the fans just had a fucking enough, and they all left and went home or went to the pub. And I think that spoke louder than any boo, really. It was just not interested. If you're going to play Beyonce again over the bloody loudspeakers like it's fucking North Korea and you can't voice an opinion, fuck it, we'll go home. And I felt really, that was, Harry Kane's walking around with his ball, and there's no one there.
Yeah, that was sad. There's a photo difference between last season and this season of the photos, right?
Oh,
of the people
really?
leaving, the send off, right, for the fans, and it was nearly a full South stand last time, nearly full for people staying, and this time, the South stand was just scattered, really.
But the way to do it is, like, if someone is a supporter of Daniel Levy or Enoch, don't go calling them a wanker and a prick and all this sort of stuff. Just chill. Everyone can have their opinion, and you ain't going to do anything by driving people away like that. Do
you know what? When I look at it, I don't think there is anyone left that supports what the owners are doing, this, that, and the other. I think everyone's pissed off. I think everyone's fed up and everyone's upset. It's now about how do you, with everyone sort of being at the same stage for the first time, I would say ever.
Yeah.
How do you galvanize that? How do you use that? You know, look, I'm not one of them. I don't have the answers. Like I said, I'm not fucking that intelligent, that sort of wise. But, you know, I think we're at that point. But Scorpions for life. Look, what I will say to you, my man, is it's not worth damaging friendships, brother. It really isn't, because the reality is, at some stage they're going to be gone. You know, and the last thing you want is when they're gone, that feud carrying over into a new ownership, etc., etc. You know, just maybe try and, you know, I think, you know, many people will find common ground. All it just takes is speaking about it without personally attacking people and getting people's backs up against the wall. Scorpions for life.
I'll throw you a bone of hope here as well, Scorpion, is that, you know, these billionaires are greedy fuckers. And if Tottenham do start going down to mid-table, that is going to affect the value of the club. And soon as those fuckers see it go from, say, 3.8 billion to 3.7 billion, that's when they're going to want out.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Big up, Scorpion, my man. I really do appreciate the support. And do you know what? It's reality, brother. It's a sad sign of the times where we're at, my man. Big up.
Just two little news that we need to get through. One's Jose quotes, and another one might make Dave feel a little bit better. Dave, would you rather start with the good news or the bad news?
Go with the bad news. May as well continue with the
Yeah,
trend.
let's finish on a high, man.
Finish on the high. I like it. Convenient little Jose quotes have come out just recently from the likes of, I think, his press conference, I think with Roma. He said, Tottenham is the only club with which I do not have a close bond with, probably because the stadium was empty at the time of COVID and because President Levy didn't let me play at the final and win the trophy. But it's the only club in my life I don't have a close connection with, he said. Mr. Levy.
It's the only club he hasn't won at, though, isn't it, Jack? Every other where he's won something, so he's been able to rebuild that rapport with the owners, with the fans. We didn't even give him a chance to do that. We did not give him the chance to do that. You know, and again, you know, the warning signs were there back then. You know, you sacked the guy who's known for winning trophies. It's why you hired him in the first place. And you got rid of him to put Mason in charge against Pep Guardiola, who has no experience whatsoever, against the best manager in the world. And the only other manager who's really topped him in La Liga has been Jose Mourinho. It's fucking mind-boggling when you really think about it. And the fact that he calls it Mr. Levy Club says everything you need to know. He's pointing, he's telling people, your problem.
It also, I think, just at least tells me, Paul, that Jose Mourinho, like, the fact that he still clearly has, like, you know, he's still thinking about it. He's still, you know, it's still on his mind, right? You know, this his tenure with Spurs. It just feels like had maybe he even been given a chance to win that final, then it really, he would just not, he wouldn't have much to say, right? Because it wasn't exactly going too well for him before that final. But apparently he was putting a lot of sort of emphasis and a lot of preparation into it. I think part of the reason he even got sacked was because I think Daniel Levy caught wind of the fact that he was preparing for that final like weeks in advance instead of maybe giving all of his attention to all of the Premier League games, you know, over the weekend as well. So, I mean, had maybe Jose Mourinho been actually given that chance to win a final or not, let's say he doesn't, he probably then wouldn't be able to have as much to say because he had that chance to win a final and then things weren't going as well for him. So ultimately it's less debatable. But the fact that he isn't even given a chance to win the final, it just makes his whole tenure, I think, hard to even judge.
And I think the empty stadium would play into that as well. So that I think that is a fair chunk of it. But you know, for people that look down on the things like the Carabao Cup, well, here's a guy that's won everything numerous times over in numerous countries, and this is sticking in his throat. The cup that, you know, a lot of people think that is not good enough for Tottenham to win. Well, Jose wanted the bloody thing, so if it's good enough for him, it should be good enough for us. And yeah, it's
Sean D said they appointed Jose to win a trophy, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to. Like, Jose was kind of brought in to win a trophy. They didn't even give him his chance to do it. I think if he got his chance and he failed, it'd be easier to judge him harshly. It'd be easier to kind of, hit him with the stick, about how he could have done better. But the fact that he doesn't even get that chance to do what he was originally brought in to do, it's just maybe even hard to judge him then.
It was, it was purely because, top four. That's all it was. And, sacking a manager a week before a cup final is ridiculous. So we did it before with, who did we sack it before a semi-final? Was it George Graham to get Glenn Hoddle in? And two not very popular managers, I guess, in the Tottenham way. But you still don't do that before a bloody final. And if they've got you to the final, surely they deserve a crack at it. Let the chips fall where they may. They've done it. They've done right by the club and right by the fans to get you in that situation, to give you a shot, to put you in the mix, and just to fuck him off, like you say, put Mason v Pep. Nah, but that just that just fucking shows you. But I guess it shows how much, in a way, it shows how much Mourinho, in a way, does or did care about Tottenham. Even though he says he didn't feel the attachment, he's still talking about it as sounds like a regret of his career. And it's a shame, isn't it? That we're the only fucking club. He's even got an attachment with Man United, and they fucking hated him.
Look. On Neil Shafton's point here as well, it's like, no, he didn't lose his mojo. He was the only one to win a trophy since Sir Alex Ferguson. He had them second in the league and stuff like that. He was competing. He just didn't have everything he needed. But the reality is, he still made the best of a bad situation. It's only
won a Europa League.
Yeah, he won a Europa League as well. He had success at Man United. He didn't lose his mojo. It's fans at Tottenham that made him look like he lost his mojo, because the way we speak about some of these guys, because we don't like their methods. He's too mean. He's this, he's that, he's everything else. He's boring. The reality is, his football has won everywhere he's been. And to prove he didn't lose his mojo, which, by the way, a lot of the English media at the time also stirred it up.
Yeah.
He's gone to Roma. He's won a Europa Conference League, and he's about to do a back-to-back with a Europa League. And if he does that, he has a chance of beating what he done at Porto, which was a Europa League and then a Champions League back-to-back. If he goes on and does that, he eclipses what he done when he first made his name. It makes him an even better manager. It makes him an even greater manager. The reality is, you don't bring him in here to win your trophies and then sack him 6 days before a cup final. It's just absolutely unforgivable. It's unforgivable. We can sit here, we can pick flaws in all these managers that we hire. We can sit here and say they're outdated, they're done. That's the way we make them look when they leave. But the reality is, they're not. They're not. We're just so used to failing at Tottenham Hotspur. We don't know what success is anymore. We don't know how to bring success to the club anymore. And that's why we're going through these managers like they're fucking laxatives.
Yeah. I feel like Jose, he wouldn't be able to sort of say what he had said in that press conference had he actually been given that chance in the final. Like I said, he wouldn't be able to be as sort of, salty or sort of like petulant towards Spurs if he actually got that chance to win a final. And like I said, he could have easily lost it. Could have lost 1-0, 2-0 or whatever to Guardiola. And then it's all kind of his tenure at Spurs would be kind of poor and people would kind of look at it as really not all that great. But the fact that he doesn't even get one single chance, it is left in mystery, I think.
He also did say, I hope the Tottenham fans don't take this the wrong way. So it wasn't like he was saying we're all pricks or anything like that. It was purely focused at Levy.
Yeah, good point there. Good point there. Faz Radfar here with the super chat as well, saying, would a mass walkout in home matches help the cause? I don't really like to say what one can or cannot do or what is or isn't the right sort of way of going about it. Faz, I think whatever people feel like Spurs fans can all get behind is probably then going to have the most influence, right? Whatever Spurs fans feel maybe collectively most comfortable with. And collectively they can feel like they can do all together. I guess the more people that do the same action, the more people that do the same thing, probably the more of a message gets heard and the more that it gets noticed by bigger outlets and bigger media and gets more media attention. But whatever it may be about, not going to a game because of, the I don't know. I think it's just whatever someone's choice is. I think it's completely up to them. It's their money. It's their football club. I think as well, it's not even always just their money. It's their football club. It's their choice, what they want to do with it and how they want to support it.
Yeah.
But like I said, if maybe there was a way to sort of, whether it be walking out of games, not buying club merch, whatever it may be, if there's sort of a mass collective agreement in doing that, then the more people take notice. That's all I can say. That's all.
Yeah, I like the balloons that they're doing. That always gets a comment from the commentators, and they always pan up to Levy, and he gets a little leg stroke from his missus. It's all right, Daniel. It puts pressure on him. It makes him uncomfortable, and I like that. I want him to feel so fucking uncomfortable in that stadium that he just wants out.
I like the balloons. I fear it's a bit more of a media stunt than anything. The same as a walkout grabs media attention. You really want to make a statement and grab even more of a media attention. Do what Valencia fans done. Stand outside the stadium. Jump around, chant, do what you want outside the stadium while the match is going on. There's an incredible video of it where the majority of their fans stayed outside the stadium while a match was going on. You want to create proper noise. For me, that's how you do it. Don't go to the games whatsoever. Don't step foot inside that stadium. I've made a decision myself. I ain't spending any more going over there. I ain't going to any games until this shit improves. And for me, I think, staying outside the stadium, if you could get the majority of people to do that, I think it sends a bigger message. The fact that Spurs fans won't even enter, than a mass walkout. I think a mass walkout is good for Sky cameras and BT cameras and that to bring attention to it. But, at the end of the day, Daniel Levy's still going to sit there and go, well, they're still coming in. So for me, do it outside the ground. Make it known that you want to come and support Tottenham and you're willing to go to a certain extent, but just stay outside the ground.
Big up Faz Rafar, though. Hopefully you're keeping well, my friend. Always good to see you in here.
I will stress, I am a season ticket holder. I would say them fans have a lot more say than me. They probably know a lot more than what's going on than me as well. So, they probably have better suggestions and stuff like that than me. I'm only giving my opinion from afar.
This news, I thought maybe it would make you at least, slightly happier, Dave. And it's like, so maybe at least Daniel Levy's doing something right. And he's making a certain Man United, quite frustrated. Manchester United, according to Samuel Luckhurst of the Manchester Evening News, says that Man United will operate under the assumption that Tottenham will not sell Harry Kane. Daniel Levy has made it clear he has had no intention of letting the England captain go to another club in the Premier League. We know that he's going to play very much hardball with any Premier League club. He's probably going to swat them away. He's going to probably deny, decline all their calls. Even I think there was that joke that Daniel Levy doesn't even pick up the phone until it's like June 30th, like something like that, sometimes with some of these clubs in the Premier League. But I mean, we know that he would be more tempted, though, to a Bayern Munich or perhaps a PSG if they were to come after Harry Kane. But Dave, is this good news for you? Do you even want to believe it that Harry Kane is probably not going to Man United? What do you think? Could he go to Man United this summer? Do you believe it now more than before?
No, not United. Daniel Levy, look, he refused to sell Bale to a Premier League club when United were chasing him that time. He refused to sell Modric to Chelsea that time. I don't think Daniel Levy will sell to a Premier League club, especially clubs that he's trying to claw back on, right? It doesn't make sense. You strengthen them and weakening yourself. It creates that bigger gap. I think, Real Madrid, I seen a report yesterday. I looked at it. I was like, I don't like the look of that. That one could definitely happen, for sure. For sure. They've got history of buying our players. They've got a good relationship with Daniel Levy to get our players and stuff like that. Now, it's never worked the other way around. However, that one, I would say, could be a goer. Bayern Munich, longer-term outstanding interest. That one could be a goer. It comes down to Harry Kane then. Does he want to make that move? I think if Madrid comes calling, I think he'll make that move 100%. Look, for me, Jack, where I'm at with it, it's sort of like, how much do I believe it? I mean, look, before at the end of the season where they sacked Jose Mourinho, Roy Mason was put in charge. In his last match day notes to the fans in the last home game, Daniel Levy promised to getting back to what Tottenham were known for, good attacking front foot football. He brought in Nuno Espirito Santo. He also said the same at the end of this season. Is it going to happen? What I'm saying is the guy's somewhat history going back on his word a little. So Look, with a contract with a year to go and as many things at play, anything can happen.
I give Harry Kane more of a chance of leaving on a free. I just don't think he's leaving this summer, and that has nothing to do with him wanting to stay or anything. I think maybe when he probably looks at it, would he rather just wait till he's on a free, and then he has all the clubs in the world to pick from, all the people to come to him to make the decision. He doesn't have to have any middleman or anything involved. He just gets to make the decision about where he wants to go. I think he might probably go about it that sort of way. But Paul, do you see him going to Man United, and do you see Daniel Levy giving Man United a hard time?
Well, I reckon first things first, get a manager in. Get a manager in. Let the manager have a chat with Harry Kane. And if Harry Kane wants to go, let him go. You know, remember 2 years ago, we had to put up with a Harry Kane that was not on it for 3 months. It was really only when Conte came in that he got fired up again. I'd rather he would go, if he wants to go, than hang around and be pissed off and be a negative influence in the team for quarter to a half of a season, you know. But,
yeah,
you know, Levy being Levy, he won't do that, will he? So, I mean, the worst comes to the worst, he'll leave next year on a free. But, you know, and that's the one thing. I know you're a big fan of Harry Kane, but and I am too. But the way he handled that was not good, and he did down tools, and I just don't want to see that again. I don't want him to go out like that. Look, he's got 30 odd goals this season. If he wants to go, he's going out on a high. Hats off to you, Sir Harry. Keys to London and all that. Don't keep him against his will. Slavery was outlawed in 1867, for fuck's sake.
The thing is, though, we say that, but let's be real about the situation. He's the only player that's given us joy this season.
That's true.
That's the reality of it. He goes, what joy do we have left?
Fuck all, man.
I think he went down tools. If he can make, he has the ability to make the decision. Before, when he down tools, he didn't have the ability to make the decision. He still had some years left on his contract, but now he has. If he wants to break Shearer's record, he can just leave on a free to whatever Premier League club wants to take him. And also, if he wants to go to a Real Madrid, you know, at the end of it, he can leave, you know, as well, right? I think he's going to go for the free. I really hope he doesn't down tools in his final season. That wouldn't really make a lot of sense, to be honest, because if he is, you know, pretty set on going out on a free, might as well end on a bang. Might as well just finish and just do as best you can, knowing that you are going to be leaving and you're going to just leave the best impression that you can with them. Whereas I think before he was trying to push to get what he wants. Whereas now he can get what he wants. He either leaves kind of in the summer to whatever club, you know, puts in the right bid that Levy will accept, or he just waits 1 year longer and he'll only be 31 or 32, whatever it is. He'll still be in a decent age. So he can then go on a free after that.
But first things first, we've got to get a manager in. Let the manager talk it over with Harry. Levy, stay out of it for fuck's sake.
Big up Ian Ferguson. Good to see you in the chat there. But
I
think we're going to leave it there, everybody. We went through all the various news. Like I said, we're just regurgitating the headlines and just reflecting and giving our lamenting on them, you know, giving our passionate and dramatic opinions on them.
I thought we were finishing on a high, Jack. Not bloody Harry Kane.
That's the high I can offer you, Paul. That's all I can get. I don't have good stuff.
Some spurious rumour from Twitter that we're not going to sell Harry Kane. Is that the best I suppose that is the best we can fucking come up with.
This week. I'll provide better
Jack was expecting me to interpret that news a bit better, to be honest with you.
Better next week.
But look, everybody, that's it from, you know, all the stuff yesterday, some of the stuff that's out there today. Hopefully everyone out there has enjoyed the conversation. A massive thank you to Sean earlier on. Let's hope he's okay. Massive thank you to Paul for giving up his time this evening, which is over in Australia, to come on here and help us out today. And a massive thank you, but not last but not least, but most importantly, you guys out there. The support, you know, has been absolutely relentless. It's been phenomenal. I don't know why you like to listen to what I have to say or Jack has to say, but you do apparently. So I really appreciate that. If you could smash that like button before we end off. If you're new, smash that subscribe button. And we'll see you back very, very soon with more content. One last thing from all you guys. I'm on Chris Collins at 8:30 again tonight. Because of your support, because of your amazing support from the last time I was on there. So please, let's replicate it. Let's show people, Harris Army, we are strong. Let's go.
Harris Army, we trust everybody. We'll be seeing you.
In Big Ange, we trust.
In the Ange, we trust. No more Red X.
See y'all soon.
See everybody.